There's a feeling that sometimes creeps in, not just on a Sunday evening before the work week, but on a larger, more existential scale. It's the quiet hum of time passing, the sense that the sand in the hourglass is flowing steadily downwards. While we remain standing still, we collect future plans like souvenirs we never look at, telling ourselves that someday we will start that project, take that trip, say that thing we need to say. We live as if we have a secret contract with eternity, a hidden pause button we can press whenever we're ready to truly begin. But the button isn't there, and the film of our life keeps rolling, often with us as a passive observer rather than the main character. This quiet anxiety, this feeling of being a ghost in our own existence, stems from a fundamental denial, a great unspoken agreement in our modern world to ignore the one single certainty of our lives. We have been taught to see death as a failure, a morbid taboo to be sanitized, hidden away, and never spoken of in polite company. Yet, this very avoidance is the anchor that keeps us chained to procrastination, to trivial fears, and to a life lived at half volume. By refusing to acknowledge the finite nature of our time, we inadvertently waste it, squandering our most precious, non-renewable resources, our attention and our moments, on things that simply do not matter. But what if there was a different way? What if the very thing we fear most holds the key to our liberation? What if the universe has been whispering an ancient secret to us all along? A message encoded in two simple Latin words: Memento Mori. Remember, you will die. This isn't a curse. It is not a call to despair. It is the most potent, most powerful catalyst for living fully. It is an invitation to strip away everything that is unessential, to shatter the illusions that hold us back, and to finally, truly, show up for our own lives. Throughout this journey, we will explore this profound philosophy, not as a dry academic exercise, but as a living, breathing tool for transformation through the wisdom of audiobooks. Letting these powerful stories and ideas wash over us during a commute, a workout, or a quiet moment, we can learn to turn the awareness of our mortality from a source of fear into a source of power. A compass that points us directly toward a life of vibrant purpose, deep connection, and authentic joy. This is the path to waking up. And it begins by looking at the end. To truly understand the power we are about to unlock, we must first approach the source of the whisper itself. We must travel back in time, not just in our minds, but in the very spirit of our inquiry, to a world of marble, of empires, and of profound philosophical insight. The phrase, Memento Mori, and may sound severe to our modern ears, perhaps conjuring images of Gothic art, of skulls and shadows, a grim reminder from a darker time. But that is a misunderstanding, a translation of language without a translation of context. The original intention was not to create fear, but to cultivate freedom. It was not a shout of doom, but a whisper of perspective, offered in the most triumphant moments of life. To grasp its true meaning, we must strip away the layers of misinterpretation and listen to it as it was first intended, as a secret passed from the heart of wisdom to the ear of power. Imagine the scene: ancient Rome, a city electric with energy. A victorious general is returning from a campaign. Having expanded the borders of the empire and secured his place in history, he rides in a magnificent chariot, pulled by 4 white horses. Winding his way through the roaring crowds, he wears a purple toga embroidered with gold. A crown of laurel rests on his head. This is the moment of ultimate human achievement, the peak of glory, power, and public adoration. He is, for this one day, treated almost as a god. But behind him, in the chariot, stands a single figure, a slave, whose only duty during this entire procession is to lean in, again and again, and whisper a simple, grounding truth into the general's ear. Respise post T. O meninges memento mori. Look behind you. Remember that you are a man. Remember that you will die. This act was not meant to be cruel. It was not intended to spoil the celebration or to humiliate the victor. It was medicine. It was an antidote to the most dangerous disease that can afflict the successful: hubris, the pride that comes before the fall. In his moment of greatest strength, he was being reminded of his ultimate vulnerability. In his moment of feeling like a deity, he was being reminded of his humanity. The whisper was a tool to keep his feet on the ground even as his name was praised to the heavens. It was a reminder that all of this, the parade, the glory, the power, is temporary. This context is everything. Memento Mori was born not in a tomb, but in a triumph. It's not a philosophy for the dying. It's a philosophy for the living, especially for those who want to live well, with perspective, humility, and a clear-eyed view of reality. This ancient practice reveals the fundamental distinction we must make, a line in the sand between two very different ways of approaching our mortality. On one side of the line is morbidity. Morbidity is a passive, fearful obsession with decay. It's the act of staring at the abyss and letting the darkness consume you. It's an unhealthy fascination with the gruesome details of the end, rooted in anxiety and helplessness. It drains your energy. It paralyzes you with dread, and it serves no purpose other than to amplify fear. On the other side of the line is stoic contemplation. This is an active, courageous, and strategic use of the idea of death. It is not about looking at death, but about using the concept of death as a lens through which to look at life. It is a tool, a filter, a clarifying agent. If morbidity is like staring directly into the blinding sun, stoic contemplation is like using the light of that same sun to see the world around you with breathtaking clarity. It doesn't ask you to dwell on the process of dying. It asks you to consider the fact of your mortality so that you can determine how to live. It is the ultimate reality check. The one principle that, when held in mind, can instantly reorder your priorities and burn away the trivial anxieties that clutter our daily lives. This powerful idea was championed by some of history's most practical and resilient minds. These were not academics in ivory towers, but men who lived in the thick of it, dealing with politics, exile, power, and peril. People like Seneca, a playwright, statesman, and advisor to the Emperor Nero. You can hear his pragmatic voice in his audiobooks and letters, where he relentlessly argues that our greatest poverty is the squandering of our time. He famously wrote, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a great deal of it." For Seneca, Memento Mori was a call to action against procrastination. It was a reminder that our time is a finite, non-renewable resource, and every moment we spend on meaningless distractions, on pointless grudges, or on delaying our true work, is a moment we can never get back. Then there was Epictetus, a man who was born a slave and rose to become one of the most respected philosophers of his time. His life experience taught him the critical difference between what we can control and what we cannot. He taught that the root of all human suffering is our desire to control the uncontrollable. We cannot control the weather, the economy, or what other people think of us. And ultimate among the uncontrollables is death itself. For Epictetus, fearing death was therefore the height of irrationality, a waste of precious energy on something utterly beyond our command. His Memento Mori was a call to radical acceptance, to focus our power exclusively on the one domain we truly own: our own thoughts, our judgments, and our actions. And perhaps most famously, there is Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor, the most powerful man in the world, who took the time every single night, amidst war and plague and political intrigue, to write to himself, to remind himself of these core principles. His journal, known to us as Meditations, is one of the most profound audiobooks you can ever experience. It is the sound of a great man wrestling with his own soul. And at the heart of it is Memento Mori. He constantly reminds himself that death is a natural process, a part of the great cycle of the universe. A person's life is a mere point in eternity. He writes about seeing death not as a tragedy, but as a dissolution, a return to the elements from which we came. No more frightening than a leaf falling from a tree in autumn. For Marcus, Memento Mori was a source of cosmic perspective, a way to find peace by understanding his small but significant place within the grand, unfolding tapestry of nature. To truly grasp why these brilliant minds saw this concept as a gift, consider this story. Once, there was a king, wise and beloved, who had built a prosperous and peaceful kingdom. He had a loving family, loyal friends, and the respect of his people. But he had one great fear that haunted his every waking moment, the fear of death. He saw it as the ultimate thief that would one day rob him of everything he held dear. And so, he used his vast resources to find a mythical spring, and he drank from it. And the gods granted his one wish, immortality. At first, it was pure bliss. He outlived his enemies. He watched his kingdom flourish for centuries. He amassed knowledge that no mortal could ever dream of. But then, the curse began to reveal itself. He watched his beloved wife grow old and frail, her memory fading while his remained sharp as glass. He held her hand as she passed, his own heart breaking with a grief that he knew would never end. He then watched his children, and his children's children, follow the same path. Each goodbye, a fresh wound on his eternal soul. The joy of love became an agony, for he knew it was always a prelude to loss. Friendships were fleeting, transient connections with mayflies. The world changed. Empires rose and fell. Languages were born and died. But he remained, a stone in a relentless river, polished, smooth by endless grief. The taste of food became bland. The beauty of a sunset felt routine, without an end point. There was no urgency, no preciousness, no meaning. His immortality was not a life without end. It was a death without release. It was a cold, gray, endless prison of consciousness. In his despair, he finally understood. The beauty of the song was not just in the notes, but in the silence that followed. The value of the day was created by the coming of the night. Life's texture, its sweetness, its disparity, vibrant beauty, was woven from the fragile, finite thread of mortality. He had not feared death. He had feared life. And in trying to eliminate the end, he had erased the meaning of the entire journey. This is the secret the Stoics knew. Memento Mori is not a chain. It is the key that unlocks the cage, reminding us that it is the very finiteness of life that makes it infinitely precious. So if this ancient whisper is not a curse but a key, if it is a tool for humility, perspective, and purpose, then we are faced with a profound question. Why have we, in our modern world, worked so hard to block it out? Why have we built entire cultures on the foundation of its denial? We arrive, then, at a crucial question. If this ancient wisdom, this Memento Mori, is so effective, so liberating, why did we ever let it go? The answer is not simple. It is not a single event, but a slow and steady construction, an invisible architecture of denial built around us over generations. We live inside it. We breathe its air. We accept its walls as the boundaries of reality. It's a collective great forgetting, a silent agreement to trade a difficult truth for a comfortable illusion, to reclaim the power of Memento Mori. We must first become archaeologists of our own culture and of our own minds. We must learn to see the very walls we have mistaken for the horizon, to identify the subtle and not so subtle ways our modern world is designed to make us forget the one thing we should always remember. The denial is not a flaw in our character. It's a feature of our environment, and it manifests in four pervasive ways. First, and most visibly, is our culture's obsessive, relentless cult of youth. We are bombarded, from every screen and every billboard, with the message that aging is not a natural progression of life, but a disease to be fought, a problem to be solved. A multi-billion-dollar industry thrives on this fear, selling us creams, serums, surgeries, and supplements, all promising to halt or reverse the inexorable march of time. Media celebrates the young and beautiful, while the old are often rendered invisible, their wisdom and experience sidelined in favor of youthful vitality. Every smoothed-out wrinkle, every digitally erased crow's foot, every dyed gray hair is a small, subconscious act of rebellion against our own mortality. It's a tiny protest shouting, "Not me. Not yet." We treat the natural signs of a life lived as imperfections to be corrected, rather than as a map of our journey. But this desperate clinging to youth does not bring happiness. It creates a new, corrosive anxiety, the fear of the next birthday, the fear of the mirror, the fear of our own natural evolution. By worshiping youth, we inadvertently devalue the entirety of the human experience, and we rob ourselves of the grace, wisdom, and self-acceptance that can only come with time. This obsession is the first and most visible wall of our denial, a constant, glittering distraction from the truth of our own life cycle. Second, the denial is woven into the very fabric of our language. We have become masters of the euphemism, creating a linguistic buffer zone around the reality of death. Think about the words we use. People don't die. They pass away. They are lost. They have gone to a better place. Or they lost their battle. Even dark humor, like kicking the bucket, serves to deflect the raw finality of the event, while often spoken from a place of kindness, meant to soften a harsh blow. The cumulative effect of this linguistic gymnastics is to reinforce the idea that death is something alien, something shameful, something that cannot be looked at directly or named for what it is. The simple, three-letter word, D, has become almost impolite, a conversational hand grenade. This careful tiptoeing around the truth makes honest, meaningful conversations about our end-of-life wishes, our fears, and our legacy incredibly difficult. It keeps the subject in the shadows, shrouded in whispers and metaphors, ensuring it remains a foreign concept rather than an integrated, accepted part of our understanding of life. This leads us to the third, and perhaps the deepest, layer of our denial, the chilling fear of the void. A profound existential dread. This is not just a fear of pain or sickness, but a terror of annihilation, of the utter cessation of our consciousness. It is the fear that our life, our struggles, or loves, our achievements, will ultimately amount to nothing, erased by the great, indifferent silence of non-existence. The cultural anthropologist Ernest Becker won a Pulitzer Prize for his monumental work on this very topic. A book titled The Denial of Death. An audiobook experience so profound it can reshape your entire worldview. Becker's central argument is that most of what we call civilization, our grand ambitions, our towering monuments, our quest for fame, our complex religions, our very drive to create a legacy, is at its core an elaborate, heroic, and desperate defense mechanism against the terror of our own mortality. We build what he calls immortality projects to convince ourselves that some part of us, our name, our work, our impact, will survive our physical death. This gnawing fear of being insignificant, of being forgotten, is the engine that drives so much of modern life's frantic activity. A deep, often unconscious anxiety that we are constantly trying to outrun. This frantic race is perfectly embodied in the story of a man we'll call Michael. Michael is the archetypal modern success. A tech entrepreneur whose company just went public. His calendar is a work of art. A mosaic of color-coded appointments from 5 a.m. to midnight, back-to-back Zoom calls with different continents. High-stakes negotiations. Investor briefings. His phone is a constant stream of notifications. A symphony of manufactured urgency. He is admired. He is wealthy. He is on the cover of magazines. Yet, Michael cannot be still. The 5 minutes between meetings are immediately filled with a podcast. He eats his lunch while answering emails. His vacations are workations, spent with a laptop by the pool. He hasn't experienced an hour of unscheduled, uninterrupted silence in over a decade. His friends praise his work ethic, his drive. But it is not drive. It is flight. One day, he is on a long-haul flight home. Shortly after takeoff, the captain announces that the plane's Wi-Fi system is down and will not be available for the entire 14-hour journey. For the first time in years, Michael is trapped. No emails, no calls, no news, no social media, just him, his thoughts, and the low hum of the engines. At first, it's just irritation, then restlessness, and then the silence he has been outrunning for his entire adult life finally catches him. The great, terrifying questions begin to surface from the deep. What is all this for? If this plane went down, what would it all have meant? Who is Michael? Without the busyness, without the title, without the next deal, the panic that rises in him is not about business. It's about being. His life of constant motion has not been a path to success, but a strategy to avoid himself. A frantic sprint away from the one finish line he cannot avoid. Michael's story is our story. His coping mechanism is our culture's chosen coping mechanism, the great digital distraction. We carry in our pockets devices of near infinite power, designed to deliver a constant, endless stream of external stimuli. The infinite scroll on social media, the all-you-can-eat buffet of streaming services, the outrage-driven 24-hour news cycle. These are not just tools or entertainment. They have become the primary anesthetics for our existential pain. They provide a steady drip of low-grade dopamine, a comforting noise that keeps us from having to listen to the quiet, sometimes challenging, sometimes beautiful, inner voice that asks the big questions. We are no longer just distracting ourselves from boredom. We are distracting ourselves from the fundamental act of being. We have constructed a world that is loud, bright, and endlessly entertaining. A beautiful and comfortable prison of denial. But now, we can see it. We have become the archaeologists of our own minds. We have identified the cult of youth, the language of evasion, the terror of the void, and the engine of distraction. We can see the walls, and once you can see the walls of a prison, you can begin to plot your escape. The next step on our journey is to take the very thing we have been taught to fear, this rediscovered awareness of our mortality, and to transform it from a source of anxiety into the ultimate source of fuel, forging it into the most powerful tool for focus and purpose we will ever possess. Having seen the invisible prison of denial we have built for ourselves, the question is no longer what it is, but how we escape. The key is not some new, complicated life-hacking system or a secret whispered on a mountaintop. The key is the oldest and most fundamental truth, the very truth we have been taught to ignore. We must now take this idea of our mortality, and instead of running from it, we must turn around and embrace it as our greatest ally. We must learn to transform it from a source of background anxiety into the most potent and effective tool for a focused, meaningful, and productive life. We are all familiar with the power of a deadline. That project for work, that paper for school. As the final hour approaches, a strange kind of magic happens. Procrastination evaporates. Distractions fade away. A laser-like focus descends. We become ruthlessly efficient, making decisions quickly and executing with precision. Now, imagine having a deadline that governs all other deadlines. A final, unnegotiable end date for every project, every dream, every ambition. This is what Memento Mori provides. It is the grand deadline. And when you learn to keep it in your awareness, it doesn't create stress. It creates unparalleled clarity and drive. The greatest enemy of meaningful work is the myth of tomorrow. Procrastination is the thief of life. And it operates on a single, flawed assumption that you have an infinite supply of time. It's a form of temporal debt. A constant borrowing of energy and focus from a future self that we blithely assume will be better equipped, more motivated, and blessed with more opportunities. We tell ourselves, I'll start that business when things settle down. Or, I'll write that book when I feel inspired. Or, I'll mend that relationship when the time is right. But Memento Mori walks onto the stage and exposes this for the dangerous fantasy it is. It reveals that time is not a vast, open prairie, but a finite, rapidly depleting reservoir. Imagine you had a bank account, but you didn't know the exact balance. All you knew for certain was that it was a one-time deposit. It was constantly being drawn from, and no more money would ever be added. How would that change your spending? You would instantly stop buying trivial, meaningless things. You would scrutinize every single purchase, asking, is this truly worth it? This is precisely what an awareness of the grand deadline does for your time. It forces you to stop spending your precious, limited moments on the trivialities and to start investing them in the things that provide the deepest returns. The comfortable lie of someday shatters, replaced by the powerful truth of right now. This isn't just a philosophical theory. It has been the guiding principle for some of the most effective people in history. Perhaps no one articulated this more powerfully in our time than Steve Jobs. In his now legendary Stanford commencement speech, a story you can listen to and feel the weight of in his own voice, he shared his central operating principle. He said, "For the past 33 years, I have looked in the mirror every morning and asked myself, if today were the last day of my life, would I want to do what I am about to do today? And whenever the answer has been no for too many days in a row, I know I need to change something." Let's break down the sheer genius of this simple practice. This isn't about being morbid. It's a daily, practical, clarifying question. It acts as an immediate filter for your intentions. The prospect of an imminent end has a wonderful way of cutting through all the secondary noise. The external expectations, the pride, the fear of embarrassment, the fear of failure. As Jobs himself said, "Remembering that I'll be dead soon is the most important tool I've ever encountered to help me make the big choices in life." Because almost everything, all external expectations, all pride, all fear of embarrassment or failure, these things just fall away in the face of death, leaving only what is truly important. This is a mental model available to every single one of us. Right now, it is a daily check-in with the grand deadline to ensure that the life you are living today aligns with the person you truly want to be. This practice also exposes one of the great deceptions of modern life: the difference between being busy and being productive. Our culture wears busyness like a badge of honor, a calendar packed with meetings, a constant flurry of emails, a life lived in perpetual motion. These are often seen as indicators of importance and success, but the grand deadline forces us to ask a much more penetrating question: busy doing what? An honest accounting often reveals that much of our busyness is a highly sophisticated form of avoidance. We fill our days with low-impact, Low-risk tasks because it feels good. Answering emails feels productive. Attending meetings feels like work. Scrolling through industry news feels like research. But often, these activities are a comfortable shield we use to protect ourselves from the one or two truly important, often difficult and intimidating, and things that would actually move our lives forward in a meaningful way. It is far easier to be busy than it is to be brave. It's less frightening to clean out your inbox than it is to make the sales call you're afraid of, or to sit down and face the blank page of the first chapter of your book. As the audiobook, The One Thing by Gary Keller, so brilliantly articulates, extraordinary results are determined by how well you can focus on the single most important thing. Memento Mori is the ultimate tool for identifying your one thing, not just for today, but for your life. Because it forces you to ask, in the limited time I have, what is the absolute most important use of this hour, this day, this year? Once you have this clarity, you unlock a superpower, the liberating ability to say no. Every time you say yes to one thing, you are, by necessity, saying no to everything else you could have been doing in that moment. The problem is, we often do this unconsciously. A yes to a meeting that could have been an email is a no to an hour of deep work on your most important project. A yes to a social obligation you feel nothing for is a no to an evening of rest or quality time with your family. A yes to helping someone else with their priorities is often a no to your own. The grand deadline makes the staggering opportunity cost of every yes visible and visceral. It gives you the internal justification and the external courage to politely but firmly decline the requests, the invitations, and the obligations that drain your finite life force without adding meaning or value. This isn't an act of selfishness. It is the ultimate act of stewardship. It is a recognition that your time is your life, and you have a responsibility to invest it wisely. Saying no to the non-essential becomes a profound act of self-respect, a clear declaration of what and who is truly important to you. In the end, Memento Mori is not a whip that flogs you into working harder. It is a compass that ensures you are always pointed in the right direction. It is the ultimate productivity system because it doesn't just help you manage your tasks. It forces you to question their very existence. It transforms your relationship with time from one of passive, mindless consumption to one of active, intentional investment. It is the difference between drifting with the current and seizing the rudder to steer toward a chosen destination. And once you begin to move through the world with this newfound urgency and focus, a remarkable secondary effect begins to unfold. The fog of triviality begins to lift. The noise of the world recedes, and a profound, empowering clarity begins to settle over everything you see. As you begin to live with an awareness of the grand deadline, you start to move with a new sense of purpose. The procrastination fades, and a focused urgency takes its place. But this is only the first wave of transformation. The next effect is even more profound, and it happens not by adding anything new to your life, but by taking things away. An awareness of your mortality is the ultimate clarity filter. Imagine pouring your life, with all its complexities, its anxieties, its obligations, and its desires, through a finely woven filter. The trivialities, the distractions, the needless worries, they all get caught, unable to pass through. And what flows out the other side is pure, concentrated, and essential. This is the great clarifying power of Memento Mori. It is a subtractive process that doesn't leave you with less. It leaves you with more of what truly matters. It simplifies, as it purifies, and it reveals the brilliant signal that was always there, hidden beneath the noise of modern life. The first and most immediate thing to be caught in this filter is fear, not the healthy, instinctual fear that keeps you from stepping in front of a moving bus, but the vast constellation of psychological fears that dictate so much of our behavior. Think of the fears that hold you back. The fear of public speaking, the fear of asking for what you're worth, the fear of starting your own business and failing, The fear of being judged by strangers on social media. The fear of being rejected by someone you care about. In our day-to-day existence, these fears can feel like giant, terrifying monsters, looming over us, paralyzing our will and shrinking our world. Now, let's apply the filter. Pick one of your fears. Hold it in your mind. See it in all its intimidating detail. Now, in your other hand, hold the concept of your own mortality, the finite, precious nature of your time here. Place the two side by side. What happens to the monster of fear? It shrinks in the vast, silent context of your own non-existence. The fear of a moment of embarrassment, of a single no, of the opinion of someone you'll never meet again, becomes almost laughably small. What is one failed business attempt in the grand sweep of a life? What is one awkward conversation compared to the final, eternal silence? The clarity filter doesn't magically eliminate these fears, but it puts them in their proper, manageable perspective. It reveals them for what they are, phantoms of the ego. And the ego has very little authority when it stands before the abyss. This mental exercise can be distilled into a powerful, practical tool you can carry with you everywhere. It's called the deathbed test. It is the ultimate litmus test for what is worth your energy, for any problem that confronts you, any anxiety that consumes you, any grudge that you are holding on to. Ask yourself this one simple question. On the last day of my life, will this matter to me? Will the rude comment from a stranger on the internet matter? Will the traffic jam that made you 15 minutes late matter? Will the petty office politics matter? Will the argument over whose turn it was to do the dishes matter? For the vast majority of our daily agitations, the answer that echoes back from our future self is a clear, resounding no. This isn't a call to become a passive nihilist who cares about nothing. On the contrary, it is a call to become a strategic investor of your emotion and attention by refusing to spend your finite energy on the things that will fail. The deathbed test. You create a vast reservoir of focus and passion to pour into the very few things that will pass it with flying colors. The quality of your relationships, the integrity of your character, the genuine contributions you made, the love you were brave enough to give and receive. There is a timeless story of a master stone carver. A visitor comes to his studio and marvels at a breathtaking statue of an angel. Its wings unfurled, its expression serene. The block of marble it came from sits in the corner, rough and unremarkable. The visitor asks the master, "How did you know how to create such perfection from that shapeless rock?" The master carver simply replies, "The angel was in the stone the entire time. I just chipped away all the parts that weren't the angel." This is perhaps the most powerful metaphor for what the clarity filter does for our lives. We are all born with an authentic self inside, a core of values, passions, and a unique way of being in the world. This is the angel in the stone. But over time, layers of non-essential rock are added. The expectations of our parents, the pressures of our peers, the desire for status symbols that society tells us to want, the fear of judgment that makes us hide our true selves. We become buried under layers of what is not us. Memento Mori is the chisel. The awareness of death gives us the supreme courage and the sharp precision to begin chipping away everything that isn't the angel. It's the slow, deliberate process of removing the need for external approval, the fear of being different, the pursuit of goals that leave us feeling empty. This journey isn't about becoming someone new. It is the art of subtraction. It is the liberating process of revealing the masterpiece you have been all along. This means finding the freedom to break free from the golden handcuffs of expectation. Our culture often provides a pre-written life script. Get good grades, go to a good college, land a safe job, get married by a certain age, buy a house, save for retirement. There is nothing inherently wrong with this script, except when it is not your own. So many people follow these steps dutifully, checking all the boxes, only to wake up in their 40s or 50s with a hollow feeling, a sense of quiet desperation, having climbed a ladder that was leaning against the wrong wall. The audiobook, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a F.K. by Mark Manson, is a modern testament to this ancient idea. A call to choose your values carefully and to stop giving your precious energy to things that don't align with them. The clarity filter gives you the ultimate permission slip to look at the script society has handed you and to ask, is this part really for me? Is this a story I actually want to star in? It allows you to disappoint people if necessary, in order to be true to yourself. It helps you to understand that while the opinions of others may feel loud and urgent right now, the only review that will matter in the end is the one you give yourself on the life you chose to live. The beauty of this great stripping away is that it doesn't leave a void. It creates a sacred, open space. When you are no longer burdened by trivial fears, when you are no longer consumed by meaningless worries, when you are no longer contorting yourself to fit the shape of others' expectations, you become lighter. Your vision clears, and into that newly created space, something powerful and profound begins to grow. When you stop focusing on what doesn't matter, you can finally, truly, see and feel the immense value of what does. The simple act of breathing, the warmth of the sun, the presence of a loved one, these things stop being background details and become the main event. This clearing of the clutter is the essential prerequisite for the next stage of our journey, the awakening of a deep, unshakable, and radical sense of gratitude after the powerful clarity filter has done its work, stripping away the anxieties, the pressures, and the non-essential fears. We are left in a new kind of space. It is a quiet, open, and clear space within our own consciousness. The critical question then becomes, what do we allow to grow here? The answer, which arises as naturally as a flower turning to the sun, is gratitude. But this is not the superficial, Hallmark card version of gratitude we are often taught. Not just a mental checklist of 3 things we're thankful for before we go to sleep. This is something far more primal, more visceral, and more potent. It is a radical gratitude, forged in the fire of Memento Mori. It is not an exercise you do, but a state of being you inhabit. A fundamental rewiring of your perception that transforms the entire texture of your life from mundane to miraculous. Human beings are creatures of adaptation. It is one of our greatest strengths and also one of our most subtle weaknesses. We get used to things. The daily miracle of waking up in a warm bed, the unfailing loyalty of a pet, the constant and reliable presence of a person we love. These wonders, through sheer repetition, become part of the background scenery of our lives. We take them for granted not because we are bad people, but because our brains are wired for efficiency. To notice what is new and threatening, not what is constant and good. This is where Memento Mori performs one of its most profound services. It acts as a powerful pattern interrupt to this hedonic adaptation, by gently but persistently reminding us that everything is temporary. It breaks the spell of the ordinary. It introduces the ghost of potential loss into the room. And it is only against this dark, velvet backdrop of potential absence that the things we have begin to shine with their true, brilliant, and astonishing light. You don't truly appreciate the simple act of breathing until your breath is threatened. You don't fully appreciate your health until you receive a frightening diagnosis. You don't appreciate the sound of a loved one's voice until you fear you may not hear it again. Memento Mori gives us the incredible gift of experiencing this profound appreciation without having to endure the actual, devastating loss. It allows us to borrow the wisdom of loss to enrich the experience of presence. The Stoics had a specific name for this practice. They called it premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of future evils. But we can reframe it as a form of negative visualization. It sounds counterintuitive, but it is one of the most effective gratitude hacks ever conceived. Let's try it. Just for a moment, bring to your mind something or someone you deeply cherish. It could be your partner, your child, a close friend, your home, or even a simple capacity, like your ability to walk or see. Hold them clearly in your mind's eye. Now, gently, and with the intention of appreciation, imagine for a brief moment that they are gone. Imagine your life without their presence, without their laughter, without their support. Feel the space that they would leave behind. Don't dwell here in sorrow. Just visit for a second. Now, open your eyes and let the reality rush back in. Bring them back into your awareness. Fully present, still here. Feel that sensation flooding your chest. That warmth, that rush of relief, that sudden, overwhelming sense of preciousness. That feeling is radical gratitude. It is a gratitude that has weight, a gratitude that has depth. By taking a brief, controlled journey to a world of absence, we make our return to the world of presence feel like a breathtaking gift. An unexpected miracle. There's a story that perfectly illustrates this sudden shift in perception. A woman named Clara was living a life painted in shades of gray. She wasn't unhappy. Not really. She was just numb. Her life was a predictable loop. The same commute, the same desk, the same dinner, the same television shows. The days bled into one another, unremarkable and indistinct. One rainy afternoon, driving home, a car coming the other way, hydroplaned and spun out of control. For one, terrifying. Slow motion, second. Clara was certain it was the end. The screech of tires, the jarring impact that never came, the sudden, violent lurch as she swerved. Her car coming to a stop just inches from disaster. She sat there, hands shaking, heart hammering against her ribs, completely unharmed, but shaken to the very core of her being. The next morning, she woke up, and the world had been reborn in vibrant color. As she sat at her kitchen table, the way the morning light caught the dust motes dancing in the air seemed like the most beautiful ballet she had ever witnessed. The bitter, rich taste of her coffee was an explosion of complexity on her tongue. The chirping of sparrows outside her window was not just noise. It was a symphony of life. When her husband walked into the room, she looked at his familiar face and saw it as if for the first time. A map of shared memories. A miracle of presence she had been looking at but not seeing for years. This is the state of being that the spiritual teacher Eckhart Tolle describes so powerfully in his transformative audiobook. The power of now. Clara didn't have to change a single thing about her life. Her close encounter with the end fundamentally rewired her perception of it. She learned in one terrifying instant the lesson that Memento Mori invites us to practice deliberately, every single day. That this ordinary life is an extraordinary gift. This profound state of gratitude is more than just a pleasant feeling. It is a powerful force that can reshape your reality. A concept that resonates deeply with modern spiritual teachings, like the law of attraction. These principles suggest that the universe is vibrational, and like attracts like. When we are constantly focused on what we lack, not enough money, not enough love, or not enough success, we are operating from a frequency of scarcity. We are sending out a signal of not enough. And the universe, in its impersonal wisdom, mirrors that reality back to us. Gratitude is the master key to shifting your frequency. When you are in a state of genuine, deeply felt gratitude, you are broadcasting a powerful signal of abundance, of wholeness, of I have enough. I am enough. You are focused on the fullness of the what is rather than the emptiness of the what is not. Memento Mori. By making every moment, every person, every experience feel precious and unguaranteed, becomes the ultimate catalyst for this authentic state of gratitude. It's not a forced positivity. It's a deep, sober, and unshakable appreciation for the sheer fact of your existence. In this way, this ancient Stoic tool becomes a powerful technology for modern manifestation. By holding a gentle awareness of the end, we transform the present moment into an unending cause for celebration. The mundane becomes sacred. The routine becomes a ritual. We stop living in a future of what-ifs and when-I-haves. And we anchor ourselves firmly in the abundant reality of what is. Our life is no longer a dress rehearsal for some future performance. We realize, with startling clarity, that this is the show. Right here. Right now. This profound appreciation for the present, however, often illuminates the dark corners of our past. As we begin to value the now, we become acutely aware of the anchors holding us back. The heavy weights of past mistakes and unspoken words that prevent us from fully embracing this newfound abundance. We must now turn our attention to these shadows, not to dwell in them, but to release them. Once and for all, we have arrived in this beautiful, open space. This present moment illuminated by the light of radical gratitude. The world feels fresh, vibrant, and full of possibility. Yet, even in this sunlit clearing, a shadow often lingers. It is the ghost of our past selves, the echo of choices made and opportunities missed. This shadow has a name: regret. It is a heavy anchor we drag behind us, scraping along the ground of the present, snagging on every new experience, and making it impossible to sail freely into the future. We may have clarified our present and have a new appreciation for it, but if we are still tethered to the weight of our past, we can never truly be free. It is here that Memento Mori, the tool that brightens our future and enriches our present, performs its third great miracle. It is the sharpest blade we have to cut the ropes of regret and make peace with our past. Regret is a unique form of self-inflicted punishment. It is a prison cell where we are simultaneously the inmate, the jailer, and the judge. Within the confines of our own minds, we endlessly replay the old films of our mistakes, the hurtful words we said in anger, the loving words we left unspoken, the business opportunity we were too scared to take, the relationship we sabotaged through our own insecurity. We become amateur time travelers, constantly revisiting a past that is, by its very nature, immutable. It is a fixed, frozen landscape. The only thing that is alive, the only thing that is malleable, is our relationship to that landscape. Regret is the act of chaining ourselves to a corpse, hoping it will somehow spring back to life so we can do things differently. It is a profound waste of our vital, living energy. Researchers have found that regrets tend to fall into two categories: regrets of action, the things we did that we wish we hadn't, and regrets of inaction, the things we didn't do that we wish we had. And while both can be painful, studies consistently show that in the long run, it is the regrets of inaction, the ghosts of our unlived lives, that haunt us the most. So how does an awareness of death, the grand deadline, help us break free from this prison? It works differently, but powerfully, on both types of regret. For the regrets of inaction, the unstarted business, the unwritten book, the untaken trip, the unspoken I love you. Memento Mori acts as a deafening alarm clock. It shakes us from our nostalgic slumber and screams, the clock is ticking. That specific door from the past may be closed, but the hallway of the present is filled with new doors, and they are closing one by one, day by day. The pain of past inaction is transformed into the fuel for present action. The regret becomes a teacher, pointing you not toward what was lost, but toward what can still be gained. It shifts your focus from the futile wish to edit the past, to the urgent, vital need to write a better present. For the regrets of action, the mistake made, the trust broken, the failure experienced, Memento Mori offers the profound gift of perspective. It invites you to take your mistake, as painful and as real as it is, and place it upon the vast canvas of a single, finite life. Is this one act, this one chapter, going to be the defining feature of your entire story? Are you willing to sacrifice the thousands of days you may have left to the memory of one day you got wrong? The sheer finality of death makes the act of endlessly punishing yourself for a past event seem like a tragic absurdity. It prompts the ultimate question: am I willing to spend my limited, precious, and unguaranteed time on this earth chained to something that cannot be undone? The answer, in the clear light of your own mortality, is almost always a liberating no. There is a classic Zen story that perfectly captures this wisdom. Two monks, one senior and one junior, and were on a long journey. They came to a river with a strong current where a beautiful young woman stood, afraid to cross. The senior monk, seeing her distress, walked over, hoisted her onto his back, carried her across the swirling water, and gently set her down on the other side. She thanked him, and he simply nodded, and the two monks continued their walk in silence. Hours passed. The sun began to set. The junior monk grew more and more agitated, his brow furrowed, his steps heavy. Finally, unable to contain himself any longer, he burst out, "Brother, how could you do that? We are monks. Our vows strictly forbid us from even touching a woman. What you did back there was a serious violation." The senior monk looked at his companion with a calm, gentle expression and replied, "Brother, I set that woman down by the river hours ago. Why are you still carrying her?" This story is a masterclass in letting go. The woman represents our regrets, our grudges, our mistakes from the past. Most of us are like the junior monk, mentally carrying our burdens long after the event has passed, allowing their weight to exhaust us and poison the beauty of our current journey. Memento Mori is the wisdom of the senior monk. It reminds us that life is too short, and the road ahead is too long, to be carrying things we should have set down miles ago. This act of setting down our burdens is an act of profound self-forgiveness, and this is often the hardest part, because we are our own harshest critics. The work of researchers like Brené Brown, whose audiobooks on shame and vulnerability are essential listening, shows us that we hold ourselves to impossible standards. We judge our past self using the knowledge and wisdom of our present self, which is a fundamentally unfair trial. Your 20-year-old self did not know what your 40-year-old self knows now. Your self from last year lacked the experience your self has today. Memento Mori encourages a radical compassion for these past versions of you. It asks you to look back at them not with scorn, but with empathy. They were doing the best they could with the emotional tools, the maturity, and the information they had available at that time. To hold a grudge against your past self is as illogical as being angry at a child for not knowing how to solve a complex algebraic equation. Forgiving yourself is not about condoning a mistake or pretending it didn't happen. It is about acknowledging your own flawed, beautiful humanity. It is about giving yourself the grace to have learned, to have grown, and to have evolved. It is the ultimate recognition that your past does not have to be a life sentence. By wielding the sharp blade of Memento Mori, we can finally cut the anchor line. The past, with all its triumphs and all its stumbles, becomes what it should be, a library of lessons, not a prison of regret. By transforming the pain of inaction into the fuel for present action, and by granting our past selves a compassionate pardon, we become lighter. The dead weight falls away. We are no longer dragging our history behind us. We are free, and once we have been released from the chains of the past, we are finally able to turn and face the future, not with trepidation, but with a newfound lightness and a courageous heart. This freedom allows us to finally confront the great dragon that so often guards the path forward, the universal and paralyzing force of fear. Having cut the heavy anchor of past regret, we find ourselves lighter, freer, and more present than ever before. We are untethered from the dead weight of yesterday, but as we turn to face the future, we often encounter a different kind of obstacle. It is not a solid wall, but a thick, swirling, and disorienting fog. This fog is fear. It whispers doubts into our ears, conjures terrifying mirages of failure and rejection, and makes the path forward seem fraught with peril. It is the great paralyzing force in human life. But here, too, Memento Mori offers us a powerful antidote. It does not promise a world without fear. That would be an inhuman world. Instead, it offers us a way to change our relationship with fear. It teaches us that fear is not a monster to be slain, but a dance partner to be understood. And an awareness of our own mortality is the music that allows us to finally take the lead, transforming the clumsy, panic shuffle of anxiety into a courageous and graceful waltz. To learn this dance, we must first understand our partner. Fear is not a monolith, it comes in different forms. On one hand, we have the ancient, evolutionary fears hardwired into our lizard brain. The fear of heights, of venomous creatures, of sudden loud noises. These fears are a biological gift, a survival system designed to keep our physical bodies safe from harm. But in our modern world, these are rarely the fears that truly hold us back. The fears that clip our wings and shrink our lives are of a different nature entirely. They are the abstract, psychological fears, the fear of failure, the fear of rejection, the fear of public speaking, the fear of looking foolish, the fear of not being good enough, the fear of being alone. And if you trace these psychological fears back to their source, you will almost always find the same culprit hiding in the shadows: the ego. We are not afraid of giving the speech. We are afraid of what a poorly received speech will say about our intelligence. We are not afraid of launching the business. We are afraid of what a failed business will say about our worth. We are not afraid of asking for love. We are afraid of what a rejection will say about our desirability. These fears are all about the desperate, frantic protection of our constructed self-image. This is where Memento Mori enters the dance floor. If our most paralyzing fears are born from the ego's need to protect itself, what happens when you introduce a concept that fundamentally dissolves the ego's importance? An awareness of our own mortality is the ultimate ego dissolver. It is a bucket of ice water thrown on the feverish, self-obsessed machinations of the ego. The ego, with its desperate need to be right, to look good, and to be seen as important, is rendered utterly absurd when placed in the context of its own inevitable and absolute annihilation. Memento Mori leans in and whispers a profound truth to the terrified ego. Relax. This thing you are so afraid of, this potential embarrassment, this risk of failure in the grand scheme of cosmic time and in the face of your own non-existence, it is dust. This too shall pass, and so shall you. This perspective doesn't magically erase the feeling of fear, the racing heart or the sweaty palms. What it does is far more important. It strips the fear of its power to command you. It transfers authority from the frightened ego back to your centered, conscious self, the wise observer within, who knows that a single moment of risk is worth a lifetime of regret. This philosophy can be channeled into a brilliantly practical exercise, one championed by the Stoics like Seneca and popularized in our time by Tim Ferriss as fear setting. It's a way to take the vague, terrifying monster of fear and drag it out into the light, where you can see it for what it truly is. The process is simple. First, you define, take the thing you are afraid to do, and ask yourself, what is the absolute worst-case scenario? Be specific. Don't just say it will be a disaster. Write down in concrete detail what that disaster looks like. You lose a specific amount of money. You have to endure a few weeks of embarrassment. A specific person says no. Often, the act of simply defining the fear reveals its manageable size. Second, you prevent. For each of the worst-case outcomes you've listed, brainstorm specific things you could do to prevent them from happening, or at least to decrease their likelihood. This shifts your mind from a state of anxious paralysis to one of proactive problem solving. Third, you repair. Now, imagine the worst-case scenario has happened. What are the concrete steps you could take to repair the damage? Who could you ask for help? How could you get back on your feet? This step builds resilience by showing you that even the worst outcome is almost always survivable. And now, we add the Memento Mori layer. Look at your list of worst-case scenarios and ask yourself, on the last day of my life, how much will any of this have mattered? This final question puts the entire exercise into its ultimate context, dramatically shrinking the perceived stakes and giving you the courage to move forward. Consider the story of Eleanor, a gifted singer with a voice that could silence a room, but who was crippled by a debilitating stage fright. She loved music more than life itself. But the thought of standing in front of an audience, of being the center of attention, filled her with a unique kind of terror. What if she forgot the lyrics? What if her voice cracked? What if they didn't like her? What if they judged her? Her dream was withering inside of her, suffocated by these fears. As the author Susan Jeffers writes in her classic audiobook, the key is to feel the fear and do it anyway. But Eleanor didn't know how. One day, her wise mentor gave her a Memento Mori-based exercise. He didn't ask her to imagine the performance going well. He asked her to imagine her life having gone by. Eleanor, he said, I want you to close your eyes and picture yourself as a 90-year-old woman, sitting in a rocking chair, looking back on your life. And I want you to imagine two versions of that life. In the first, you never sang. You let the fear win. The music stayed inside you. How does that 90-year-old feel? Eleanor could feel a hollow ache of regret. Now, the mentor continued. Imagine a second 90-year-old. This one was terrified every single time. Her hands shook. Her voice trembled on the first note. And maybe she even forgot a word or two on occasion. But she got up on that stage. And she sang. She shared her gift. Which 90-year-old do you want to be? In that moment, the fear of a lifetime of regret became infinitely greater than the fear of a few minutes of stage fright. Her motivation shifted. She was no longer seeking the audience's approval. She was honoring a promise to her future self. The next time she walked on stage, she was still afraid. But the fear was no longer her master. It was just a dance partner. And she was finally ready to lead. Fear, we discover, is not a wall to be broken down, but a current to be navigated. Memento Mori doesn't stop the river from flowing, but it teaches us how to be a better swimmer. It is the music that changes the rhythm of our dance with anxiety, allowing us to move with courage and purpose even when our heart is racing. By looking the ultimate fear in the eye, we gain a liberating perspective on all the lesser, ego-driven fears that try to keep our lives small. And as this fear of judgment, failure, and rejection begins to recede, it clears a vital space in our lives. It allows us to step out from behind our defensive walls and move towards something far more rewarding and essential. Our capacity for deep, authentic, and courageous connection with other people. As we learn to dance with fear, we find a new kind of courage. It is the courage to be vulnerable, to risk rejection, to step out from behind the safety of our internal walls. And while this courage is useful in all areas of our lives, its highest and most vital application is in the realm of human connection. For too many of us, our relationships are like beautiful gardens we forget to water. We get busy, we get distracted. We assume the garden will tend to itself. But Memento Mori arrives like a sudden, urgent weather report, warning of a coming frost. It reminds us that these gardens are not permanent. They are fragile. They are precious. And they require our constant, mindful attention. This awareness is a powerful relationship accelerator. It strips away the petty frustrations and the lazy complacency. And it focuses us with diamond-like clarity on the only things that have ever mattered between two human beings: love, presence, and the sacred, shared time we have together. The primary disease that infects our closest bonds is a quiet, creeping complacency, we fall victim to the illusion of permanent presence. The people who matter most are partners, our parents, our children, our dearest friends become fixtures in the architecture of our lives. We treat them like the sun, assuming they will simply rise again tomorrow. And because we believe in this imaginary always, we procrastinate on love, we put off the important conversation, telling ourselves the time isn't right. We delay the apology, letting our pride win the day. We withhold the compliment, thinking they already know how we feel. We see a friend's name pop up on our phone and think, I'll call them back next week when I have more time. Memento Mori shatters this dangerous illusion. It holds up the truth that every single person in our life is a temporary gift, on loan from the universe, with an unknown return date. This realization isn't meant to be morbid. It is meant to be a profound motivator. It replaces the lazy, unconscious assumption of always with the vibrant, conscious appreciation of right now. It transforms the mundane goodbye before work into a moment of genuine connection, because we are gently aware that no moment is guaranteed. This urgent appreciation compels us to use our words, to close the gap between what we feel in our hearts and what we say with our mouths. So much of the world's relational suffering comes from the vast, silent graveyards of unspoken words. An awareness of our mortality makes expressing ourselves feel less risky and far more essential. It highlights the 5 phrases that form the bedrock of any healthy, thriving relationship. First, I love you, not as a reflexive phrase at the end of a phone call, but as a mindful, présent déclaration. Second, I appreciate you, going beyond love to express specific gratitude for who they are and what they do. I appreciate the way you listen. I appreciate how hard you work for our family. Third, I forgive you. This is a gift we give ourselves as much as them. The act of releasing the poison of a grudge from our own system. Fourth, please forgive me. This is perhaps the bravest phrase, the courageous act of setting aside our ego, taking full responsibility for our actions, and asking for repair. And finally, goodbye, said with the underlying understanding that we should always endeavor to leave things on a note of peace, because we can never be certain it isn't the last time. The fear of vulnerability in saying these things pales in comparison to the specter of regret from having left them unsaid. We don't have to guess what matters most at the end of a life. We have data, collected by people who were there. The palliative care nurse Bronnie Ware spent years tending to people in the last weeks of their lives, and she documented their most common regrets in her powerful audiobook, The Top 5 Regrets of the Dying. It is a report back from the finish line, a memo from the future telling us what to focus on right now. And the findings are a stunning confirmation of the connection imperative. One of the most common regrets was, I wish I'd had the courage to express my feelings. People died with hearts full of unspoken love, unoffered forgiveness, and unexpressed gratitude. Another was, I wish I had stayed in touch with my friends. In the busyness of their lives, they had let golden friendships fade away, only to realize at the end that wealth and achievement were a cold comfort compared to the warmth of true companionship. These are not opinions. This is the distilled wisdom of humanity. Viewed from the ultimate perspective, the currency of a well-lived life, it turns out, is not money, status, or accomplishment. It is the depth and quality of our love. Memento Mori is the gift of being able to live according to this final wisdom now, while there is still time to do something about it. Consider the story of 2 brothers, Mark and David. Years ago, a bitter argument over their late father's small inheritance had driven a wedge between them. What started as a disagreement over a few $1,000s and a worn-out watch festered into a decade of proud, stubborn silence. They lived in the same city, attended the same family holidays with a cold distance, but they never truly spoke, each waiting for the other to make the first move. Their relationship was a cold war of their own making. Then, They received a phone call. Their elderly mother had suffered a stroke. The news was a shock. A sudden memento mori that shattered the frozen landscape of their pride. Mark, the older brother, found himself staring at his phone, his thumb hovering over David's name. The reasons for their fight, which had once felt so monumental, now seemed like dust, utterly insignificant. He pressed call. The first few moments of the conversation were awkward, hesitant, thick with 10 years of unsaid things. But as they talked about their mother, about the hospital, about their shared fear, the ice began to crack. The anger was gone, replaced by a shared, primal love for their mother and a terrifying awareness of their own family's finite time together. In that one conversation, they reclaimed a decade of lost time. They realized that their pride had been a prison, and the key had been in their pocket the entire time. They had been fighting over a dead man's watch, while their own time was ticking away. Our relationships, in the final accounting, are not just a part of our life. They are our life. They are the web of connection that holds our entire existence together and gives it meaning. Memento Mori is the urgent, loving, and persistent command to treat them as the sacred things they are. It calls us to show up, to be brave with our feelings, to choose forgiveness over pride, and to invest our most precious resource, our time, in the people who are our greatest treasure. And as we begin to align our personal lives with this profound truth, as we begin to nurture our connections with this newfound urgency and care, a natural and powerful question arises. What about the other half of our waking existence? What about our work? Is the way we spend 40, 50, or 60 hours a week a true reflection of our values? Or is it just another area where we have been sleepwalking, waiting for a tomorrow that isn't guaranteed? Having turned the lens of Memento Mori onto our relationships, we've begun the vital work of investing our time and energy where it matters most, in the rich soil of human connection. But for most of us, there is another vast territory that consumes nearly a third of our lives, a place where we spend our days, our energy, and our intellectual focus. This territory is our work, and for many in the modern world, work has been reduced to a simple, often soul-crushing, transaction, a certain number of hours of your finita life, traded for a certain amount of money to pay for the hours you are not at work. We call this making a living. But Memento Mori crashes onto the scene and demands we ask a more profound question. Are we making a life, or are we merely funding an existence? An awareness of the grand deadline compels us to look beyond the paycheck, to challenge the very definition of a job, and to begin the courageous work of transforming our labor from a mere transaction into a meaningful contribution, a primary channel for the expression of our purpose on this earth. To begin this reevaluation, we can use one of the most powerful thought experiments imaginable. It cuts through years of conditioning and procrastination like a bolt of lightning. Sit with this for a moment. Imagine you go to your doctor for a routine checkup. The doctor tells you that you are in perfect physical health, but they've discovered a rare and benign genetic quirk. It will not cause you any pain or illness, but it means you have, with near certainty, exactly 5 years left to live. Now, to imagine that at the same moment, you are informed that your finances have been secured for the rest of that time. You do not have to work for money. The question is, what would you do with those 260 weeks? How would you spend your days? After the initial shock, after you take the long vacation you've always dreamed of, what would you do? What would you build, create, learn, or contribute? The answer that arises from the quiet depths of your being. The answer free from the constraints of financial need and societal expectation is a direct message from your soul. It is a compass pointing directly towards your true work, toward what you are really here to do. The 5-year time frame is the perfect catalyst. It's long enough to accomplish something truly significant. but short enough to make every single day count? This question often leads people to a framework that the Japanese have been exploring for centuries: the concept of ikigai. The word roughly translates to a reason for being. It is far more nuanced than the simple Western advice to follow your passion. Ikigai is presented as the intersection of four essential circles. The first circle is what you love. Your passions, the things that make you feel alive and curious. The second is what you are good at. Your unique skills and talents, both natural and learned. The third circle is what the world needs. A contribution that serves others and makes the world a slightly better place. And the fourth circle is what you can be paid for. Ensuring your work is sustainable in the real world. A job that hits only one or two of these circles leads to a life out of balance. A job that is only what you are good at and get paid for, but that you don't love and doesn't serve a need, feels empty. A job that you love and the world needs, but that you aren't good at and can't get paid for, is a noble but unsustainable dream. Ikigai, that profound sense of fulfillment, lies in the center. At the convergence of all four circles, Memento Mori acts as a powerful catalyst in this search. The urgency of a finite life makes the question, what does the world need, feel less abstract and more personal. It makes, what do I love, feel less like a frivolous indulgence and more like an essential piece of guidance. It pushes us to seek that rare and beautiful alignment where our daily efforts are not just a job, but a joyful and meaningful expression of our deepest self. This search also requires us to redefine legacy. In the context of a career, we often think of legacy as something grand and monumental. Building a company, having a building named after you, achieving widespread fame. These are the immortality projects that the ego craves. But a Memento Mori-informed perspective reveals a much more intimate, accessible, and arguably more meaningful definition of legacy. Legacy is not a monument you build, it is the positive ripple effect you create. Moment by moment, day by day. A manager's legacy is not the quarterly profits they generated, but the young employees they mentored with kindness and wisdom, who then went on to have their own successful and ethical careers. A barista's legacy is not the thousands of cups of coffee they served, but the hundreds of small, genuine human interactions they created. Starting someone's day with a moment of warmth and recognition. A janitor's legacy in a hospital is not just clean floors, but the creation of a sanitary and calm environment where patients can heal and families can find peace. Legacy, seen this way, is about how you make other people feel. It is about the quality of attention and care you bring to your tasks. This democratizes the idea of meaningful work. It becomes available to every single one of us, right now, regardless of our job title or salary. Consider the story of Sarah, a brilliant corporate lawyer. By every external metric, she was a massive success. She had a corner office with a stunning view, a salary that afforded her every comfort, and the hard-won respect of her peers in a competitive field. She had done everything she was supposed to do. Yet, every Sunday evening, a familiar sense of dread would settle in her stomach. The work felt like a zero-sum game, a world of conflict and contracts that felt disconnected from the warmth of human life. She was making an excellent living, but she felt like she was slowly dying inside. This idea is central to the work of Viktor Frankl, whose audiobook, Man's Search for Meaning, teaches that meaning can be found in any circumstance, but it must be actively sought. For Sarah, a sudden health scare in her family acted as her personal memento mori, a shock that forced her to ask the 5-year question. And the answer had nothing to do with corporate law. The answer involved teaching, mentoring, and fostering growth. With a fear she had to dance with every day, she made a terrifying decision. She keyed her job, enrolled in a master's program for education, and 2 years later, took a position as a high school history teacher in an inner-city school for less than a quarter of her previous salary. Her old colleagues were baffled. They saw it as a massive step down. But the story's final scene is not one of regret. It's Sarah, a year into her new career, standing in front of a classroom of teenagers. Her eyes are bright. Her energy is infectious. She's orchestrating a lively debate about historical ethics. And her students are engaged, challenged, and curious. She goes home exhausted, but it is the good exhaustion of a day spent on meaningful labor. She is infinitely richer in purpose than she ever was in her corner office. Her legacy is no longer measured in billable hours, but in the young minds she is inspiring and the futures she is helping to shape. Our work will consume a vast portion of the time we have left. Memento Mori implores us to make that time count. It is the ultimate permission slip to redefine success on our own terms, to have the courage to make a change, or to find the meaning that already exists in the work we do. It urges us to see our career not as a cage we tolerate for a paycheck, but as a canvas for our life's great work. And when we begin to infuse our daily labor with this sense of purpose, when our actions align with our deepest values, we open the door to a state of being where our best work flows from us effortlessly. We tap into the wellspring of our own innate creativity, a powerful urge that a finite life makes impossible to ignore. When we begin to align our daily work with a deeper sense of meaning, something remarkable happens. We tap into a new wellspring of energy, a force that feels less like disciplined effort and more like joyful inspiration. This force is the creative impulse, the innate human urge to make, to build, to express, and to bring something new into the world. And it is here that Memento Mori reveals itself, not just as a tool for focus or a catalyst for gratitude, but as the ultimate, most powerful muse. An awareness of our mortality does not simply suggest that we should be creative. It makes the act of creation feel like a biological imperative, a spiritual necessity, an urgent and non-negotiable expression of what it means to be fully, vibrantly alive in the face of our own finite existence. At its core, creativity is humanity's sacred, courageous rebellion against the void. It is our primary answer to the silent, arresting tide of time. Animals build a nest out of pure instinct, following a genetic blueprint. But human beings, cursed and blessed with the knowledge of their own end, create for a different reason entirely. The first human who painted a bison on a cave wall, the first storyteller who wove a myth around a crackling fire, the first musician who struck a hollow log to create a rhythm. They were all doing the same thing. They were trying to distill a piece of their unique, fleeting consciousness into a form that could outlast their own body. They were trying to say, in a language that could transcend death, I was here. I saw this. I felt this. I mattered. Every act of creation, from the grandest symphony to the simplest poem, is an act of defiance. It is a refusal to go quietly into the night. It is a small, precious flicker of light pushed back against the immense darkness of oblivion, a testament to the indomitable fire of the human spirit. This understanding transforms the gentle wish to be creative into a powerful, motivating force, driven by the fear of a specific and profound form of regret, the agony of the unsung song. The author, Wayne Dyer, spoke often of the tragedy of dying with your music still inside you. This is the pain of the unwritten novel collecting dust in your imagination, the unpainted canvas leaning blankly against a wall in your mind, the unlaunched business that remains a collection of notes in a forgotten journal. It is the deep, existential ache of knowing you had a gift to share that you kept locked away. Memento Mori takes this dull ache and turns it into a sharp, undeniable call to action. It leans in and asks the terrifyingly simple question, if not now, when? It makes the inherent discomfort of the creative process, the discipline, the vulnerability, the fear of the blank page, the uncertainty of the outcome seem insignificant compared to the certain and devastating pain of arriving at the end of your days, with your most important work still undone, your most beautiful music still trapped in your throat. This urgency gives us the power to face down the two great dragons that guard the gates of creative expression: perfectionism and the fear of criticism. Perfectionism presents itself as a noble standard, but it is actually fear in a tuxedo. It is the most sophisticated form of procrastination ever invented. It's the endless tweaking of the first chapter, the constant search for the perfect tool, the belief that you need just one more course or one more piece of information before you can begin. In reality, it is a defense mechanism designed to keep you from ever having to finish your work. Because if it's never finished, it can never be judged. Memento Mori utterly destroys perfectionism. It holds up its finite clock and laughs at the absurdity of waiting for a perfect that will never arrive. It champions the raw, messy, beautiful truth of done over the elegant, sterile fantasy of perfect. An imperfect book that exists in the world is infinitely more valuable than the flawless masterpiece that exists only in your head. The second dragon, fear of criticism, is the fear of what they will say. Memento Mori puts they in their proper place. It forces you to ask, who are these critics? Are they not mortal? Are their opinions not also destined to fade into the same silence as your own? Will their praise or their scorn truly matter to you on your deathbed? This perspective cultivates a kind of divine indifference, a freedom from the tyranny of other people's opinions. It allows you to become what the author, Elizabeth Gilbert, in her wonderful audiobook, Big Magic, calls a trickster creator someone who is more devoted to the joyful, sacred process of creation itself than to the unpredictable and uncontrollable outcome of its reception. You create not for applause, but because the act itself is your reward. History is filled with the stories of creators whose lives were a testament to this urgent, mortal fire. Think of Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart, composing over 600 pieces of breathtaking beauty and complexity in a tragically short life of just 35 years. He wrote with a furious, almost supernatural speed, as if he knew his time was short and he had an entire universe of music to pour out into the world. Or consider Vincent van Gogh, who in the last decade of his life, often in the throes of poverty and profound mental anguish, produced an astonishing volume of work over 2,000 pieces, including nearly 900 oil paintings. It wasn't in spite of their difficult and finite lives that they created so intensely. It was arguably because of it. Their keen, painful awareness of life's fragility, suffering, and beauty was the very fuel for their creative engine. They had no time to waste on perfectionism or critics. They had a burning, biological need to translate the storm of life that was inside them into something tangible before their time was up. Ultimately, we must expand our definition of creativity beyond the fine arts. You are engaging in an act of creation when you cultivate a garden from a patch of barren earth. You are a creator when you patiently and lovingly raise a child into a kind human being. You are a creator when you devise a more elegant and efficient process at your job, or when you prepare a meal for your family with love and attention. Every time you bring something new into the world with intention, every time you solve a problem with ingenuity, every time you impose order and beauty onto chaos, you are engaging in a life-affirming creative act. Memento Mori is a universal call to be a creator, not merely a consumer. It is a challenge to leave the world a little richer, more interesting, or more beautiful than you found it, but to live this life of deep meaning, authentic connection, and vibrant creation. We must learn to master the fundamental resource that makes it all possible, the currency upon which our entire experience is spent, our attention. We have arrived at a critical juncture in our journey. We have explored the power of Memento Mori to sharpen our focus on what is truly important, to deepen our relationships, and to ignite our creative fire. But all of these noble pursuits, meaningful work, authentic connection, vibrant creation, depend entirely on a single, fundamental resource. It is the raw material from which our entire life experience is built. It is the currency with which we purchase our reality. Moment by moment, this resource is our attention, and in the 21st century, We are living in the midst of a silent, undeclared war for control of it. There is a new gold rush, and the territory being mined is our consciousness. Every app, every website, every feed, every notification is a sophisticated tool designed by psychological architects to capture and hold a piece of your focus. Because in today's economy, your attention is the most valuable commodity on earth. We must be clear about what is at stake. Your attention is not just your focus. It is the very fabric of your life, what you choose to pay attention to. In any given moment, becomes your reality. If your attention is constantly fragmented, scattered across a dozen different apps and notifications, your life will feel fragmented and scattered. If your attention is consistently drawn to outrage, conflict, and fear on the news and social media, your experience of the world will be one of outrage, conflict, and fear. Where your focus goes, your life flows. The quality of your life is nothing more and nothing less than the quality of the things you are willing to give your attention to. And this is why Memento Mori is not just a philosophical concept, but an essential tool for survival in the modern world. It acts as the fierce, vigilant guardian of this precious currency. An awareness of the grand deadline reframes the theft of our attention from a minor annoyance into an existential crime. When a social media company uses behavioral psychology to keep you scrolling for an extra 10 minutes, they are not just taking 10 minutes of your time. They are stealing 10 irreplaceable minutes of your one finite life. They are pilfering the only currency you have that can never be replenished. When you fall down a rabbit hole of meaningless online content and emerge an hour later feeling dazed and depleted, you have allowed your life force to be siphoned away for someone else's profit, with nothing to show for it. Memento Mori holds up this transaction in the stark light of day and asks, was it worth it? Was that hour of distraction worth one of the precious few hours you have left on this earth? The answer is always a resounding, soul-shaking no. This realization must make us angry. It must make us protective. It must turn us from passive targets into active defenders of our own consciousness. To defend our attention, we must first understand how it is being attacked. The technologies we use every day are not neutral tools. They have been intentionally designed to be addictive. The infinite scroll on your social media feed ensures there is never a natural stopping point, keeping you searching for the next dopamine hit. The red notification badge triggers the same part of our brain that responds to urgent threats, creating a Pavlovian need to check it immediately. The pull to refresh mechanism on many apps was explicitly modeled after a slot machine, giving you an unpredictable reward that keeps you coming back for more. We are not weak-willed. We are up against a multi-trillion-dollar industry of the world's brightest minds, whose sole job is to figure out how to bypass our rational brain and hook our ancient reward systems. Recognizing this is not about being anti-technology. It's about being pro-human. It's about understanding the architecture of distraction so that we can begin to build our own architecture of intention. The most powerful framework for this act of rebellion is known as digital minimalism, a term coined by the author Cal Newport in his essential audiobook of the same name. This isn't about Luddism or rejecting technology entirely. It is about becoming a conscious, intentional curator of your digital life. It's the philosophy of applying extreme focus to what truly matters and ruthlessly eliminating the rest. A digital minimalist doesn't ask, could this app provide some small, occasional benefit? They ask a much harder and more important question: does this tool significantly serve something I deeply value? If the answer isn't a clear and resounding yes, it has to go. It's about moving from a state of mindless consumption to one of mindful selection, choosing a few high-quality tools and using them on your own terms. For your own purposes, imagine your attention at the start of each day as a tall, clear glass of water. It is pristine, still, and full of potential. Every time a notification buzzes, a little water spills. Every time you mindlessly check your email, the glass is jostled, and the water becomes a little cloudier. Every time you switch from one task to another, a little more is lost. By 3 in the afternoon, for many of us, the glass is half empty, and the water that remains is murky and agitated. Deep work, the kind of focused effort that produces meaningful results, requires a full, clear glass. A deep conversation with a loved one requires a full, clear glass. Being present for the beauty of a sunset requires a full, clear glass. The great challenge of our time is to build a sacred fortress around this glass of water. This means turning off all non-essential notifications. It means scheduling specific times to check email and social media, rather than letting them interrupt you at will. It means intentionally leaving your phone in another room for hours at a time. This leads to the vital practice of creating sacred spaces, both in time and in the physical world, that are free from the intrusion of the digital hive mind. Your first hour of the day could be a sacred, tech-free space for meditation, journaling, or quiet reflection, setting the tone for a day of intention rather than reaction. Your dinner table could be a sacred space, where no phones are allowed, fostering genuine human connection. Your bedroom could be a sacred space, a place for rest and intimacy, not for late-night scrolling that poisons your sleep and fills your mind with anxiety. By building these small fortresses of stillness into your life, you create places where you can actually hear yourself think, where your own priorities, not the priorities of an algorithm, can come to the surface. Ultimately, the conscious management of our attention is the fundamental discipline for living a good life in the 21st century. It is the practice that underpins everything else we have discussed. Memento Mori provides the profound why we guard our attention because our time is finite and precious. Philosophies like digital minimalism provide the practical how we curate our tools, build fortresses of focus, and choose intention over distraction. By becoming a fierce and vigilant guardian of your focus, you reclaim ownership of your life. You take the single currency you possess and you begin to invest it wisely in the people, the projects, and the experiences that truly matter. And once you have cultivated this deep, protected focus, you unlock the ability to direct it toward the highest purpose of all, to fully and richly experience the symphony of life. Not through a screen, but through your own awakened senses. We have built a fortress around our attention, guarding it as the precious, finite currency that it is. We have learned to be intentional with this resource, directing it away from the trivial and toward the essential. The profound question that follows is, what is the highest and best use of this protected, focused attention? The answer is as simple as it is life-altering. We must use it to fully show up for our own lives. One of the quietest tragedies of the modern world is not that our lives are unhappy, but that so much of them are simply unexperienced. We move through our days like ghosts in a machine, our bodies performing tasks on autopilot, while our minds are lost in a fog of past regrets or future anxieties. We eat without tasting. We walk without seeing. We listen without hearing. We are physically present, but mentally and spiritually absent. Memento Mori is the ultimate antidote to this absentee living. It is a loving but firm shake of the shoulders, a wake-up call that urges us to come home to our bodies, to inhabit our senses, and to drink in the raw, unfiltered, and breathtaking experience of being alive. Right now, to do this, we can apply a simple but powerful perceptual filter to our everyday experiences, the last time filter. It is an incredibly effective tool for shattering the trance of the ordinary. As you go about your day, gently ask yourself, what if this were the last time? What if this were the last cup of coffee you would ever taste? You would not just gulp it down for the caffeine. You would notice the rich, dark aroma before it even touched your lips. You would feel the warmth of the mug in your hands. You would savor the complex notes of bitterness and sweetness on your tongue. The simple act would transform from a routine into a ritual. What if this were the last time you felt the sun on your skin? It would cease to be just weather and would become a direct, life-giving connection to a star 93 million miles away. What if this were the last time you ever heard the sound of rain against your window? It would no longer be an inconvenience. It would be a symphony of nature, a soothing and cleansing percussion. What if this were the last time you hugged someone you love? It wouldn't be a perfunctory squeeze, it would be a profound, lingering exchange of energy and affection. A moment of true presence. This filter, applied gently throughout your day, doesn't create sadness. It creates wonder. It pulls you out of the abstract world of thought and anchors you firmly in the vibrant, tangible reality of the present moment. It turns the mundane into the magnificent. This practice transforms mindfulness from something you do into something you are. For many, mindfulness has become just another task on an already crowded to-do list. 1. Wake up. R. Meditate for 10 minutes. San. Go back to being a distracted zombie for the rest of the day. Memento Mori calls for a more integrated, holistic approach. It's not about carving out a small sanctuary of presence in a vast wilderness of distraction. It's about learning to carry that presence with you, to infuse every moment with awareness. This is mindful walking, feeling the solid ground beneath your feet with each step. This is mindful eating, tasting every flavor and texture of the food that is nourishing you. This is mindful listening, giving the person in front of you the sacred gift of your undivided attention, without planning your response while they are still speaking. The why behind this practice is no longer about a vague notion of well-being. The why, provided by Memento Mori, is stark and powerful, because this moment, right here, is the only part of your life that is real and guaranteed. To be mentally absent from this moment is to be absent from your own existence. To live on autopilot is to sleepwalk through the one and only life you will ever have. There is a story of a chef named Julian. He was a master technician, the head chef of a respected restaurant. He executed recipes with flawless precision. His kitchen ran with military efficiency. But the joy, the fire, was gone. He cooked on autopilot, his mind elsewhere, his craft reduced to a mechanical process. One evening, a grease fire erupted in the kitchen. It was sudden, violent, and for a terrifying minute. Julian was trapped by the flames. A close call that left him breathless and acutely aware of his own fragility. He returned to his kitchen a week later, a completely different man. This Memento Mori shock had reawakened his senses. Now, when he picked up a simple, humble carrot, he held it in his hand as if it were a jewel, marveling at its vibrant color, its earthy smell, its connection to the soil. He chopped an onion not as a chore, but as a meditation, paying attention to the crisp sound of the blade, the intricate layers, the sharp aroma that brought tears to his eyes. He tasted his sauces not just to check for salt, but to truly understand their evolving soul. His cooking was no longer about a recipe. It was a sensory conversation with the ingredients. His plates became works of art, composed with an attention and love that was palpable. And his patrons could taste it. The food wasn't just technically perfect anymore. It was alive. It was imbued with his presence. Julian had stopped merely making food and had started celebrating life. One delicious, mindfully prepared plate at a time. This deep appreciation for the present moment also allows us to find beauty in a way our perfection-obsessed culture often overlooks. It aligns with the ancient Japanese aesthetic philosophy of wabi-sabi. Wabi-sabi is the art of finding beauty in things that are imperfect, impermanent, and incomplete. It is the beauty of a cracked ceramic teacup, a weathered wooden gate, or the fleeting, fading bloom of a cherry blossom. It is a profound recognition that everything is in a state of flux, either growing or decaying. Memento Mori is the ultimate embrace of this truth. By accepting the impermanence of our own lives, we can finally stop chasing an impossible, static ideal of perfection. We can see the lines on a loved one's face, not as flaws to be erased, but as a beautiful, intricate map of a life well lived. We can find joy in the melancholy beauty of autumn. Rather than just mourning the loss of summer, it allows us to be present for the full, messy, imperfect, and transient glory of life as it actually is. The great poet Mary Oliver, a master of this kind of deep attention, summarized this entire philosophy in a single, perfect line from one of a poem: to pay attention. This is our endless and proper work. Memento Mori, then, is a grand invitation to come home to your body, to your senses, to the direct, unfiltered, and often breathtaking experience of being alive. It pulls us out of the gray, abstract world of worries and plans, and plunges us into the vibrant, technicolor world of the now. By truly experiencing life in all its sensory richness, we build an unshakable foundation of appreciation for the gift that it is. But a full life is not just a symphony of pleasant sensations. The world is not always a beautiful poem or a perfectly seasoned meal. Life is also filled with challenge, with pain, with difficulty, and with events that are far beyond our control. Any philosophy worth its salt must not only teach us how to savor the good, but also how to endure and even find meaning in the bad. It must equip us to face not just the beautiful, but also the brutal. And so, we must now turn to a concept that acts as the unbreakable shield to Memento Mori's sharp sword: the Stoic practice of loving our fate. Whatever it may be, we have learned to open our senses, to drink in the profound beauty of this life, to find wonder in the mundane and the magnificent alike. But any philosophy for living that only functions when the sun is shining is a fragile philosophy indeed. Life is not only a symphony of pleasant sensations, it is also, at times, a storm. There is pain, there is loss, there is injustice, there is failure, there is sickness. There are events that shatter our plans and break our hearts. A philosophy for life must be a vessel capable of navigating not just the calm harbors, but the tempests as well. It must give us strength not only when we are celebrating, but especially when we are suffering. It is here that the Stoics offer us their most challenging, most powerful, and most liberating teaching. It is the second pillar of an unbreakable mind, the unbreakable shield that complements Memento Mori's sharp sword. It is a concept encapsulated in two Latin words, amor fati, a love of one's fate. Let us be clear, this is not mere acceptance. It is not a passive, grim-faced resignation to an unpleasant reality. It is not the weak platitude of grin and bear it. Resignation is joyless and draining. Amor fati is an active, joyful, and courageous embrace of everything that happens in your life. Without reservation, it is the conscious decision to not just tolerate your fate, but to love it. It is to look at the entirety of your life, the triumphs and the tragedies, the joys and the sorrows, the beautiful accidents and the painful mistakes, and to say, "This is my life. I want nothing to be different. Not one moment of the past. Not one detail of the present. Not for all of eternity." The philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche, who championed this idea, put it this way: "My formula for greatness in a human being is amor fati, that one wants nothing to be different. Not forward, not backward, not in all eternity. Not merely bear what is necessary, still less conceal it, but love it." This is a high bar. It is the practice of seeing every event, no matter how difficult it seems at the time, as a necessary and indispensable thread in the magnificent, intricate tapestry of your existence. How is it possible to love something that feels terrible, like a failure, a betrayal, or a loss? The secret lies in a radical reframing of adversity. It lies in the Stoic principle that the author Ryan Holiday has so brilliantly revitalized in his audiobook. The obstacle is the way. The core idea is that embedded within every obstacle, every setback, every challenge, is a hidden opportunity. The obstacle does not block the path forward. It is the path forward. The difficult situation is not an impediment to you practicing your philosophy. It is the perfect gymnasium in which to practice it. The rude person is an opportunity to practice patience. A sudden failure is an opportunity to practice resilience. A frightening diagnosis is an opportunity to practice courage. A loss is an opportunity to practice gratitude for what remains. Amor fati is the practice of shifting your internal question from one of victimhood to one of empowerment. You stop asking the weak question, "Why is this happening to me?" and you start asking the powerful question, "How can I use this? What does this event now make possible?" This simple shift moves you from a state of passive suffering to one of active, creative engagement with your own life. You are no longer a victim of circumstance. You become an alchemist who can transform any base metal of suffering into the gold of wisdom and strength. There is a famous story about the inventor Thomas Edison that serves as a perfect illustration of amor fati in action. As he was working tirelessly to invent a commercially viable electric light bulb, he tested thousands upon thousands of different materials for the filament. A journalist, seeing the mountain of discarded materials, reportedly asked him, "Mr. Edison, how did it feel to fail 10,000 times?" Edison's response is a masterclass in this philosophy. He replied, "I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." Let us dissect the profound wisdom in that simple sentence. For the journalist, each burnt-out filament was a failure, a discrete event of loss and frustration. For Edison, each one was necessary data. It was an indispensable step on the path to success. He didn't just tolerate the so-called failures, he valued them. He embraced them as a required part of the messy, difficult, and ultimately beautiful process of invention. He loved his fate, which included the 10,000 steps that looked like failure to the outside world. This mindset, this love of the entire process, is what allowed him to persist where anyone else would have quit in despair. He saw no setbacks, only necessary steps. When you combine this powerful principle with the one we have been exploring all along, you create a complete and truly unbeatable philosophy for life. Think of them as two sides of the same golden coin. On one side, you have Memento Mori. Remember, you will die. This provides the urgency and the perspective. It tells you, your time is short and precious. So do not waste it on trivialities. Focus only on what truly matters. Be present. Love fully. Create with purpose. It is the principle that puts you on the right path. On the other side, you have amor fati, a love of your fate. This provides the resilience and the power. It tells you, whatever happens to you on this short, precious path, both the things you planned and the things you never would have wished for as fuel, it is all necessary. Embrace it. Use it. Waste nothing. It is the principle that ensures that nothing on the path can ultimately stop you. Together, they create a mindset of profound psychological freedom. You are moving with urgency toward a meaningful goal, and you see everything that happens along the way, both good and bad, as a gift that helps you get there. You become, as the Stoics would say, invincible, because nothing can happen to you that you cannot put to good use. Amor fati, then, is the ultimate act of personal empowerment. It is the conscious and deliberate choice to see your life not as a series of fortunate and unfortunate events, but as a perfect, interconnected, and necessary whole. It is the final step in taking absolute and unconditional ownership of your experience. When you can look at your past without wishing to change a thing, and face your future, prepared to love whatever it brings, you discover a profound sense of peace that is unshakable. This state of being, this love of what is, leads to a natural and welcome consequence: the frantic, striving, controlling ego, which is always trying to bend reality to its will, begins to relax, to recede, and to dissolve, leaving in its place a quiet, expansive, and powerful humility. We have learned to love our fate, to embrace every twist and turn of our journey as necessary and useful fuel. This practice of amor fati demands that we release our tight-fisted grip on how we think life should be, and instead, fall in love with life as it is. But what is the part of us that grips so tightly? What is the source of this resistance? This constant striving, this desperate need to control the uncontrollable. The source has a name, the ego. To take the next step in our journey toward freedom, we must now turn our attention inward. To confront this false sense of self, we must understand that the contemplation of our physical death, Memento Mori, is the ultimate catalyst for what we might call the death of the ego. And this is not an end to be feared, but a liberation to be celebrated. For in the dissolution of this false self, we find our truest and most profound freedom. First, we must clearly identify this ego. It is not your true self. It is not the silent, conscious awareness that is reading these words. The ego is the voice in your head. It is the incessant, chattering narrator that accompanies you through your day. It is the part of you that is obsessed with the past and anxious about the future, rarely content to rest in the present. The ego is the part of you that feels personally slighted when another driver cuts you off in traffic. It's the part that feels a rush of superiority when you win an argument or prove someone wrong. It's the part that endlessly compares your life, your body, your career, and your possessions to the carefully curated highlight reels you see on social media, and almost always finds you lacking. The ego is a survival mechanism that has run amok. It was designed to help us navigate a complex social world, but it has staged a coup and taken over our consciousness. It has built a story of me, a constructed identity made of memories, beliefs, and labels. And it spends all of its energy defending and enhancing this fragile story. Most of our daily suffering is simply the friction between the ego's demands and reality's indifference. This is where Memento Mori comes in as the great and final humbler. It systematically dismantles the ego's favorite obsessions. The ego craves validation and praise, and it lives in mortal terror of criticism. Memento Mori looks at this craving and asks, praise from whom? Criticism from whom? From other mortals, who, like you, will also turn to dust. From beings whose own time is a fleeting whisper in the cosmos. In the face of our shared mortality, the opinions of others lose their tyrannical power. The ego loves to be right. It reinforces its sense of identity and intelligence. Memento Mori looks at our petty arguments and intellectual battles and reveals their stunning absurdity. What is the value of winning an argument today, if both you and your opponent will one day be forgotten by the silent earth? The ego is also a bottomless pit of desire. It constantly wants more. More status, more money, more possessions, more recognition. Memento Mori looks at this frantic accumulation and asks the simple question, and then what? It reminds us that we are all just temporary custodians of our possessions. You cannot take your job title, your bank account, or your luxury car with you. The ego's entire game is exposed as a futile attempt to build a permanent fortress on shifting sands. Memento Mori provides the ultimate cosmic perspective. It asks us to zoom out, past our own lives, past our cities and nations, past the earth itself, a pale blue dot in the vastness of space, and to see our ego-driven worries shrink into the utter insignificance they deserve. There is a beautiful allegory found in the teachings of spiritual masters like Eckhart Tolle, whose audiobook, A New Earth, is a profound guide to this very topic. It is the story of a small wave on the surface of a great ocean. This little wave is filled with anxiety. It looks at the other waves and feels inadequate, wishing it were taller, stronger, more impressive. It sees the shoreline approaching and is filled with terror. for it believes the shore is its end. Its annihilation, the wave spends its entire brief existence clinging to its separate identity as a wave, defined by its shape and size, and this separation is the source of all its fear. Then, one day, in a moment of profound clarity, the wave stops, looking at other waves, and looks down into itself. It realizes that its very substance is not waveness, but water. It realizes that it is not, and never has been, separate from the vast, deep, powerful ocean. It is simply a momentary expression of the whole. The shore is not an end to be feared, but a transformation, a joyful returning to the source from which it came. In that instant, all the wave's anxiety disappears. It can now dance and play and rise and fall with a kind of ecstatic freedom, knowing that it is, and always will be, part of something eternal and immense. We are the wave. The ego is the mistaken belief that we are a separate, fragile entity. Memento Mori is that moment of clarity, the glance downwards, that helps us remember we are the entire, indivisible ocean. The death of the ego, then, does not lead to a morbid self-loathing or a sense that you are worthless. That is just the ego playing another one of its tricks. The writer C.S. Lewis captured the truth of it perfectly when he said, "True humility is not thinking less of yourself, it is thinking about yourself less." This is the crucial distinction. When the incessant, chattering narrator in your head finally quiets down, you are not left with an empty void. You are left with a spacious, alert presence. Your focus can finally shift from the endless internal drama of me, my story, my problems, my desires, to the vibrant, living reality of the world around you. Your senses awaken. Your capacity for genuine empathy blossoms. You can finally listen to another person without simply waiting for your turn to speak, because you no longer need their conversation to be a mirror that validates your own existence. This humility is not a weakness, it is a quiet, unshakable strength, rooted in the reality of what is, rather than the fantasy of what the ego wants there to be. By contemplating our physical death, we administer the only effective medicine for the sickness of the ego. The grand perspective it provides fosters a deep and authentic humility, allowing us to finally let go of the exhausting and futile need to control every person, every situation, every outcome. We stop fighting with reality and we start dancing with it. And by quieting the loud, demanding voice of this false self, we can at last begin to hear the soft, clear whisper of our true self. It is this deeper, wiser voice that has been waiting patiently beneath the noise all along. And when we finally begin to listen to it, it inevitably leads us to ask one of the most important questions a human being can ever explore. What am I here to do? What is my purpose? In the profound, expansive quiet that is left behind by the receding ego, a new question can finally be heard. It is not the ego's frantic, anxious question of, "What about me?" but a deeper, more resonant inquiry that arises from the soul itself. What is all of this for? We have used Memento Mori to clear away the clutter of our lives, the fear, the regret, the distractions, and now we stand in this open space, faced with the ultimate question of our existence. The awareness of our mortality is not just a tool for living more fully in the present. It is the ultimate catalyst for discovering why we are living at all. It invites us to consider the radical proposition that our finite time on this earth is not a cosmic accident, but a sacred container for a unique mission, a special purpose, a message that only we can deliver. Discovering this purpose is like learning to decipher a personal message sent to you from the heart of the universe. First, we must dispel a great and paralyzing myth about the nature of purpose. Many of us are taught to think of purpose as a single, magical thing, a hidden passion, a one true calling that exists somewhere out in the world. And our job is to conduct a lifelong scavenger hunt to find it. This view creates immense anxiety. What if I choose the wrong path? What if I never find it? What if I miss the clue? This is a recipe for paralysis. A more empowering and truthful perspective is this: purpose is not found. It is built. It is not a treasure you unearth, but a cathedral you construct brick by brick, day by day. With your choices and your actions, it is a direction you consciously choose to walk in, not a destination that you magically arrive at. And Memento Mori is the master architect in this construction project. It clarifies our values with ruthless efficiency. When you know your time is short, you very quickly decide what is important enough to build a life around. You stop wasting time on trivial blueprints and you start laying the foundation of what truly matters to you. So, if we are to build our purpose, what are the building materials? Where do we find the bricks? The answer is that they have been with you all along, disguised as your curiosities. The universe does not typically shout our purpose to us from the mountaintops. It whispers it to us in the form of our quiet, persistent interests, the things that naturally and effortlessly pull our attention. These whispers are clues. They are the voice of your authentic self, pointing you toward the path. Think about it. What subjects do you read about late at night? Long after your required work is done? What skills do you find yourself watching videos about, wishing you could master? What problems in the world genuinely stir your heart with anger or compassion? What activities make you lose all track of time? We often dismiss these things as frivolous hobbies, impractical daydreams, or unproductive distractions from our real lives. But Memento Mori urges us to take these whispers seriously. They are not distractions from your path, they are the path, revealing itself one breadcrumb at a time. Your purpose is often hidden in plain sight, concealed within the very things you do just for the love of doing them. This journey is beautifully illustrated in the timeless and beloved audiobook, The Alchemist, by Paulo Coelho. It is the story of Santiago, a humble shepherd boy from Spain who has a recurring dream about a treasure hidden at the Egyptian pyramids. Despite the comfort and familiarity of his life, he finds the courage to sell his flock and embark on a perilous journey to follow his dream, which he calls his personal legend. The wisdom of his journey is not in the destination, but in the process. He learns that to find his treasure, he must learn to read the omens, the seemingly random encounters and signs that the universe provides to guide him. A conversation with a mysterious king, the wisdom of a crystal merchant, the love of a desert woman, the lessons of an alchemist. These are the whispers that guide his steps. The ultimate revelation of the book is that the true treasure was not the physical gold he was seeking, but the person he had to become to complete the journey. Courageous, resilient, attentive, and deeply connected to what the book calls the soul of the world. Our lives are this same journey. Our purpose is our personal legend. Our curiosities and intuitions are the omens. Memento Mori provides the critical initial urgency that makes us willing to sell our flock to leave our comfortable, familiar, but unfulfilling reality and to take the first brave step into the unknown, trusting that the path will reveal itself as we walk it. Ultimately, your purpose is the unique gift that you, and only you, can offer the world. By virtue of your one-of-a-kind combination of experiences, your specific talents, your unique perspective, your personal history of joys and sorrows, you have been shaped into a vessel for a particular kind of contribution. Perhaps your gift is one of healing, born from your own wounds. Perhaps it is a gift of teaching, or born from a subject you are passionate about. It could be a gift of creating beauty, of building elegant systems, of bringing people together, of fighting for justice, or of simply offering a form of deep, attentive kindness that is unique to you. Your purpose is not to figure out what you can get from the world, but to spend your life figuring out what is in your unique package and then giving it away, freely and fully. Memento Mori is the ticking clock that reminds you that the time for this delivery is now. It is the urgent cosmic memo stating that the world is waiting for your gift, and you have a finite, precious window in which to deliver it. Living with purpose, then, is not some grand, intimidating burden to be shouldered. It is simply the continuous act of listening to the whispers of your true self and aligning your actions with what you hear. It is the answer to the ultimate question that Memento Mori forces us to ask. Why are you here? But knowing your why is only the first half of the equation. Living it out, day after day, week after week, in the face of life's inevitable distractions, difficulties, and demands, requires something more. It requires a structure. It requires a conscious practice. It requires building a system of habits and reminders that keep this profound awareness from fading back into the noise of everyday life. We must now turn from the philosophical to the practical and explore how to weave these threads of awareness into the very fabric of our daily routine. We must learn the art of creating rituals of remembrance. We have traveled deep into the philosophical heart of Memento Mori. We have come to understand why this ancient principle is so powerful, why it clarifies our purpose, deepens our love, conquers our fears, and awakens our senses. We have grasped the profound why, but now we arrive at the most critical and practical question of all, the how. How do we keep this life-altering awareness alive, day after day? Amidst the relentless demands of the modern world, how do we prevent this profound clarity from fading into a distant, pleasant memory as soon as the pressures of work, family, and daily life resume? The truth is, good intentions are not enough. Insight is fleeting. We are creatures of habit. And to make this philosophy a permanent part of our operating system, we must move it from the realm of abstract thought into the world of embodied daily practice. We must build rituals of remembrance. When we hear the word ritual, we might think of complex religious ceremonies. But a ritual, in its essence, is simply an intentional action or a series of actions infused with meaning. It is a way of using the body to remind the mind of a deeper truth, and the science of human behavior confirms the immense power of this approach. In his groundbreaking audiobook, Atomic Habits, author James Clear makes a powerful case that transformative change does not come from grand, sweeping gestures of willpower. It comes from the accumulation of small, consistent, daily actions. These are the atomic habits that, over time, compound to fundamentally rewire who we are. You do not simply decide to become a more present, courageous, or purposeful person. You build a system of habits that makes that outcome almost inevitable. The rituals we are about to explore are precisely that. They are the atomic habits of Memento Mori. Small and simple practices that, when performed consistently, will weave this philosophy into the very fabric of your being, making it not just something you think about, but something you live. The first and simplest ritual is to create a physical totem, an anchor for your awareness in the physical world. For centuries, Stoic philosophers, saints, and scholars famously kept a human skull on their desks. This practice, a form of art also called Memento Mori, was not about being morbid. It was a constant, silent reminder of the preciousness and brevity of life. A physical cue to stay focused on what truly mattered. In our modern world, a literal skull might be a bit much for the office, but the principle remains powerful. You can create your own totem. It could be a specific coin you carry in your pocket when you feel it, and you remember. It could be a small hourglass on your desk, a beautiful visual representation of your finite time. It could be a framed photo of a beloved ancestor, a reminder of the lineage you are part of and the legacy you will one day leave. It could even be a simple, smooth stone you picked up on a meaningful walk. The object itself is not important. Its purpose is, it acts as a pattern interrupt. In the middle of a stressful, distracted day, your hand finds the coin in your pocket. Your eyes catch the hourglass. And for just a single, conscious moment, You are pulled out of the noise and grounded back into your deepest intention, to live this day fully. Because this day is all you have. The second ritual engages the power of writing to bring intention to the beginning and end of each day. Think of it as a morning briefing and an evening debriefing with your soul. In the morning, before you reach for your phone and let the world's agenda flood your mind, take just 5 minutes with a journal. This is not the time to dwell on death, but to use the awareness of it to set a powerful intention for living. This is the practice of Memento Mori, remember to live. Ask yourself 1 or 2 simple questions. Knowing my time is finite, what is the single most important thing for me to focus on today? Or, how can I act with courage, kindness, and purpose in the hours to come? This brief ritual sets your internal compass for the day, ensuring you are proactive rather than reactive. Then, in the evening, conduct a similarly brief debriefing. This is not about harsh self-judgment, but about gentle reflection and course correction. A practice of Amor Fati. Ask, where did I live in alignment with my values today? Where did I fall short? What was one challenge I faced? And what can I learn from it? And what was one small moment of beauty, joy, or connection that I can be grateful for? This 2-part journaling practice brackets your day with intention and gratitude, creating a powerful feedback loop for a well-lived life. The third ritual involves a direct but gentle contemplation of impermanence, drawing wisdom from ancient contemplative traditions. For centuries, Buddhist monks have practiced meditation in or near graveyards. The purpose of this was not to cultivate a fascination with death, but to peacefully and directly confront the truth of impermanence. By observing the signs of decay and endings all around them, they became more comfortable with the transient nature of all things, including their own thoughts, feelings, and physical bodies. This practice reduces the fear of change and cultivates a deep sense of peace. We can adopt a modern version of this. It could be a 5-minute guided meditation, specifically focused on the theme of impermanence. Or it can be something even simpler, a mindful walk in nature. Pay attention to the cycles of life around you. See the vibrant flower that will wilt tomorrow. Notice the fallen log, slowly decaying and providing nourishment for new moss and fungi to grow. Nature is a constant, gentle teacher of the beautiful and necessary dance of life. Growth, decay, and rebirth. This practice helps us to loosen our desperate grip on things, allowing us to appreciate them more fully while they are here, without the anxiety of their inevitable passing. These are just 3 examples: the physical totem, the daily journal, the contemplation of impermanence. The most powerful rituals will be the ones you design for yourself, the ones that resonate with your unique personality, beliefs, and lifestyle. Perhaps it is a specific piece of music that reminds you of life's beauty and brevity. Perhaps it is a weekly phone call with a loved one where you intentionally practice deeper connection. Perhaps it is a single quote you read every morning. The specific form of the ritual is less important than the intention and consistency behind it. These rituals are the bridge between the world of ideas and the world of lived experience. They are the practical, everyday tools that take Memento Mori from a compelling philosophy you heard about and turn it into the very lens through which you see the world. By practicing them, we are no longer just thinking about living a life of purpose and presence. We are actively, consciously, and consistently building one. And as we build this intentional life, day by day, moment by moment, we inevitably begin to ponder what the sum of all these days will amount to. We start to consider the story our life will tell long after we are gone. This leads us, naturally and profoundly, to contemplate the nature of our legacy. Through the practice of our daily rituals, we begin to weave the wisdom of Memento Mori into the very fabric of our lives. The days become more intentional, more present, more full of purpose and love. And as these well-lived days accumulate, one after another, they begin to form the larger tapestry of our life story. It is at this point that our awareness naturally expands beyond our own daily experience to a more profound question. What will this story mean when it is finished? We must now turn our attention to the concept of legacy. But we must do so by first shattering the conventional, ego-driven definition of the word. Legacy, in our culture, is too often equated with wealth, with statues, with buildings that bear our name, with a list of achievements in a biography. Memento Mori teaches us that a true legacy is something far more intimate, more human, and infinitely more powerful. It is not what you leave to people. It is what you leave in people. There is a powerful poem by Linda Ellis that offers the perfect metaphor for this shift in perspective. It's called The Dash. The poem asks you to consider a tombstone and to notice the two dates carved upon it, the date of birth and the date of death. Our society places an enormous amount of importance on those two dates. But the poet points out that the most significant part of that tombstone is the small, simple line in between them, the dash. That little dash represents the sum total of a person's life on earth. It represents every laugh, every tear, every struggle, every triumph, every choice, every act of kindness, every moment of fear. Your legacy is not the date you arrived or the date you leave. Your legacy is the story of how you lived your dash. This simple, profound image completely reframes the concept of legacy from something that is assessed after you are gone to something that you are actively creating in this very moment. It is a present-day responsibility, not a posthumous summary. It invites you to ask yourself, right now, am I living a meaningful dash? Am I proud of the story this dash is telling? This means we must see our legacy as a story that we are co-authoring with the universe. Every single day, every interaction we have is a sentence in this story. Every choice we make is a new paragraph. Every day we live is another page. We are the protagonists and the narrators of our own epic. The question Memento Mori forces us to confront is, what kind of story are you writing? Is it a story of courage, compassion, integrity, and love? Or is it a story of fear, indifference, selfishness, and apathy? We cannot avoid writing this story. Our only choice is whether we will be a conscious author or an unconscious one. To be an unconscious author is to let the story be written for you by your unexamined habits, your fears, and the expectations of others. To be a conscious author is to pick up the pen with intention each morning and to choose the words and deeds that will create a story you are proud of. Memento Mori is the ultimate reminder that the pen is in your hand right now, and the page for today is still blank. There is no greater teacher on this subject than the late sociology professor Maury Schwartz, whose final lessons on life were immortalized in the profoundly moving audiobook, Tuesdays with Maury by Mitch Albom. As Maury was dying from the slow, creeping paralysis of ALS, he chose not to retreat into fear and isolation. Instead, he used his final months to teach his greatest and most important class, a class on how to live. Maury's wisdom on legacy cut straight to the heart of the matter. He taught that legacy has nothing to do with material wealth. We are not remembered for our assets, he would say, but for the quality of our love and the integrity of our relationships. He spoke of the importance of investing yourself in people and in your community, creating a legacy of connection that would endure long after your body was gone. Love, he said, is how you stay alive, even after you are gone. He challenged the very idea of a legacy that is only recognized after death, suggesting we create a living funeral, a chance to hear and express the love and appreciation we have for one another while we are all still here to feel it. Maury's story is the perfect, real-world embodiment of a man who consciously and beautifully crafted his legacy, not with monuments, but with moments of wisdom, love, and authentic human connection, right up to his very last breath. This brings us to the beautiful truth that a great legacy is simply an accumulation of small, well-lived moments, It is the indelible memory of how you consistently made your children feel safe, seen, and unconditionally loved. It is the reputation your colleagues have of you as someone who was always fair, who listened more than they spoke, and who championed the success of others. It is the story your friends tell of you as the one who always showed up, the one they could count on in a crisis, the one whose laughter could light up a room. Your legacy is the practical advice you gave that set someone on a better path. It is the quiet act of kindness you showed to a stranger who was having a bad day. These moments are the true inheritance you leave behind. They are the emotional and spiritual artifacts that are stored in the hearts and minds of everyone you touched. Memento Mori urges us to be intentional about creating these positive moments, to see them not as random occurrences, but as the very building blocks of an inspiring and enduring legacy. It's the quality of your presence in the small moments that will define the memory of your life. Your legacy, then, is not a final project to be completed at the end of your life. It is a quality of character to be embodied throughout it. It is the sum total of a life lived with purpose, with presence, and with love. It is the story that your dash will tell. And as we begin to see our life in this way, not as an isolated, individual journey, but as an unfolding story that will inevitably impact and influence others, begin to grasp a deeper truth. We begin to understand that we are not islands, acting in a vacuum. We begin to see that our lives are deeply and profoundly woven into the lives of everyone and everything around us. This understanding opens the door to the next level of awareness, a recognition of the vast, invisible ripple effect of our existence and our fundamental interconnectedness with all of life. As we consciously begin to craft our legacy, focusing on the story we want to leave behind in the hearts and minds of others, a profound shift in perspective occurs. The very idea of a legacy implies an impact, a connection between our life and the lives of others. This realization is like a doorway. We step through it, and our understanding of ourselves expands exponentially. We move from seeing our life as an isolated, individual story to seeing it as a single, vital thread in a vast and magnificent tapestry. Memento Mori, which begins as a deeply personal reflection on our own mortality, ultimately leads us to one of the most transcendent and comforting truths: that we are not alone, that we are all profoundly interconnected, and that our lives create ripple effects that extend far beyond our immediate sight. The poet John Donne famously wrote, "No man is an island entire of itself. Every man is a piece of the continent, a part of the main." In our modern, individualistic culture, it is easy to forget this. We cultivate the illusion of the separate self. We move through the world feeling like isolated units, competing and striving on our own. But this is a profound misunderstanding of reality. The truth of our interconnectedness is woven into every single moment of our existence. Consider the simple act of drinking a cup of coffee. That single act connects you, in a very real way, to a farmer in Colombia or Ethiopia who tended the plants, to the truck driver who transported the beans, to the roaster who perfected their flavor, to the barista who brewed your cup with care. Your simple morning ritual is the culmination of a vast, invisible network of human effort. Consider the words you speak. A moment of genuine kindness offered to a stressed cashier might be the single positive interaction they have all day, which may in turn change the tone of their evening with their family. A careless, harsh word can send out ripples of negativity in the exact same way. We are constantly, whether we are conscious of it or not, sending these ripples out into the world. Memento Mori makes us exquisitely aware of this responsibility. If our time to make an impact is short, it makes us desperately want the ripples we send out to be ones of kindness, of encouragement, of compassion, and of grace. To understand our place in this web, we can look to the wisdom of an ancient forest. Imagine a single, magnificent old-growth tree, a giant that has stood for centuries. While it is alive, its contribution is obvious. Its vast canopy provides shelter for countless birds and creatures. Its roots grip the soil, preventing erosion. Its leaves breathe in carbon dioxide and breathe out the oxygen that gives life to the forest. It is a vital, thriving hub of the entire ecosystem. Then, one day, after a long life, the tree falls in a storm. From a limited perspective, this is an end, a death. But from the perspective of the forest, it is merely a transformation. The tree's story is far from over. As its massive trunk begins to decay, it becomes what ecologists call a nurse log. It slowly releases the nutrients it has stored for centuries back into the soil, providing the perfect, fertile ground for a new generation of saplings to take root. Fungi and mosses colonize its bark. Insects and small mammals find a new home in its hollows. Its death becomes a source of immense and prolonged life for the entire community. Our lives are like this tree. Our legacy is not just the shelter we provide while we are standing tall and strong. It is also how our energy, our stories, our love, and even our physical bodies continue to nourish the community of life long after we are gone. This frames our death not as a final, tragic endpoint, but as a sacred act of giving back. A necessary and beautiful transformation of energy within a system that is much larger and older than ourselves. This perspective allows us to see our own mortality not as a personal annihilation, but as a participation in a grand, cosmic cycle. Science tells us this is literally true. The iron in our blood, the calcium in our bones, the carbon in our DNA, every atom that makes up our physical body was forged in the heart of a dying star billions of years ago. We are, quite literally, made of stardust. And after we die, these ancient atoms will not cease to exist. They will simply be released and reconfigured, becoming part of the soil, nourishing a plant, being eaten by an animal, flowing into the ocean. We are borrowed from the universe, and to the universe we shall return. Spiritual teachers like Ram Dass speak of this same process on the level of consciousness, of our individual awareness, merging back into the one great universal consciousness from which it came. Whether you see it through the lens of science or the lens of spirituality, the conclusion is the same, and it is a profound antidote to fear. If we can truly grasp that we are not a separate thing that will be extinguished, but rather a temporary, beautiful pattern in an eternal flow of energy, then death loses its terrifying finality. This deep, abiding sense of interconnectedness is the ultimate cure for the existential loneliness that haunts the human condition. One of the deepest terrors associated with death is the fear of being utterly alone in that final passage, of being fundamentally cut off from the world of the living. But how can you be truly alone if you have spent your life cultivating an awareness of your connection to all things? When you see yourself in the eyes of a stranger, when you feel a kinship with the ancient tree, when you recognize that your very breath connects you to the atmosphere of the entire planet, the illusion of being a separate, isolated self begins to dissolve. You are not a visitor here. You are not a stranger passing through. You are an inextricable, essential, and beloved part of the whole, glorious web of existence. To feel, this is to feel at home in the universe. And so we see that Memento Mori, a philosophy that begins with the most personal and seemingly isolating fact of our existence, our own individual death, ultimately leads us to the most universal and connecting conclusion possible. That we are all in this together. It is the practice that dissolves the ego's illusion of separation and reveals our true nature as interconnected beings. When we can truly feel this connection, when we can see our own lives as part of a continuous and beautiful cycle, and when we can embrace every part of that cycle as necessary and good, we open ourselves up to a state of profound and unshakable inner peace. Even in the face of life's constant, swirling changes, we learn to find our stillness in the heart of the flow. We have journeyed far from the initial, stark confrontation with our mortality to a deep, heart-opening understanding of our interconnectedness with all of life. we have seen how an awareness of our end can give us a reason for being, a purpose, and how it can compel us to live a legacy of love and contribution. This understanding should, by all rights, lead to a profound sense of peace. And yet, for many of us, a quiet hum of anxiety can remain. There is one final layer of resistance to overcome. It is our resistance to the fundamental, unchangeable nature of the universe itself. The law of impermanence. We may have accepted that we are impermanent, but we still desperately try to cling to the people, the moments, and the circumstances we love, trying to make them permanent. This final struggle, this war against the very flow of reality, is the source of our deepest suffering. True, unshakable peace is found only when we finally learn to stop fighting the current, to let go of the shore, and to find our stillness in the heart of the river. Our discontent is rooted in a simple, tragic misunderstanding. We try to build a permanent home in a world that is defined by change. Imagine you are sitting on a beautiful beach, and you scoop up a handful of warm, golden sand. You love the feeling of it, the way it glitters in the sun. So, you try to hold on to it. You squeeze your fist tight, trying to possess it, trying to keep every single grain. But the tighter you squeeze, the faster the sand streams through the gaps between your fingers. Your desperate attempt to keep it is the very action that makes you lose it. This is a perfect metaphor for how we approach life. We experience a moment of joy, a period of success, a perfect season of love, and we clench our fists. We try to hold on, to prevent it from changing, to stop the flow. We are trying to make a permanent statue out of a moving river. And this struggle against the nature of reality is the source of all our anxiety. Memento Mori is the ultimate teacher of this lesson. It whispers to us that everything, not just our bodies, but every emotion, every relationship, every triumph, every thought is as transient as the sand in our fist. To be at peace, we must learn to open our hands. This requires us to redefine our concept of peace itself. We are taught to think of peace as a state of absolute calm, a tranquil pond without a single ripple. We believe that peace is the absence of problems, the end of all struggle. And so, we spend our lives trying to control everything, trying to eliminate every ripple, a task at which we are doomed to fail. Life will always have ripples. There will always be change, challenge, and chaos. The Stoics and the great Taoist masters teach a different kind of peace. True peace is not the absence of ripples on the surface, it is the stillness of a great stone at the bottom of the river. The water rushes and tumbles and swirls around it. The current can be gentle one moment and violent the next. But the stone remains grounded, centered, and undisturbed. This is the peace we are seeking. It is an internal state of equilibrium that is not dependent on external conditions. It is the ability to maintain your center, your calm, your clarity, while the storms of life rage around you. Consider the journey of a great river. It is born as a small trickle high in the mountains and begins its long, winding journey to the sea. The river is never the same for 2 consecutive moments. Its waters are always new, always flowing. It does not fight the terrain, it adapts to it. Sometimes, it flows gently and broadly through a sunny meadow. And in these times, its journey is easy and placid. At other times, it must navigate a narrow, rocky gorge, its waters crashing and churning with violent energy. Sometimes it is crystal clear. Other times it is murky with the silt of a recent flood. If the river were to resist this, if it tried to stay forever in the sunny meadow or refused to enter the gorge, it would cease to be a river. It would become a stagnant pond. Its very nature, its power, and its purpose are found in its relentless, adaptable, and constant flow. This is the Taoist wisdom of Wu Wei, often translated as effortless action. It is the art of moving with the current of life, rather than fruitlessly struggling against it. Our lives are this river. Memento Mori reminds us that our final destination is the great, mysterious sea of what lies beyond. Our purpose is not to fight the journey, but to flow with it, embracing every meadow and navigating every gorge as a necessary part of the path. How, then, do we learn to flow? We practice with the small things. We learn to let go gracefully, by rehearsing with the minor endings that populate our lives. Think of your life as a series of small seasons. There is the season of a wonderful vacation. There is the season of summer, with its long, warm days. There is the season of a particular friendship that is intense for a few years and then naturally changes. There is the season of your children being young and living at home. There is the season of a specific project at work that consumes your attention. Our natural tendency is to meet the end of these good seasons with a sense of sadness and resistance. We mourn the end of the vacation rather than savoring the last day. We bemoan the coming of autumn rather than appreciating its unique beauty. But we can choose to see these endings differently. We can see them as low-stakes opportunities to practice the art of release. By learning to say goodbye to the small seasons with gratitude for what they were, rather than with a desperate clinging, we are training the spiritual muscle of non-attachment. We are preparing ourselves, in a gentle and manageable way, for the great final season. This practice does not diminish our joy, it enhances it, because we learn to love each season more fully for its unique, transient beauty. This, then, is the great peace of impermanence. It is the ultimate paradox of a well-lived life. By fully and radically accepting that nothing is permanent, we are finally liberated to inhabit the present moment with a sense of calm, freedom, and boundless appreciation. We stop our exhausting war with reality, and we begin to see the profound, intricate beauty in its constant, unfolding dance. This journey from the stark confrontation with death, through the discovery of purpose and connection, to this final, peaceful surrender to the flow is not just about learning to die well. It is about using the certainty of our death to finally learn how to live not in fear, not in regret, not in distraction, but to live a life of breathtaking color, courage, and vibrancy. This is the ultimate gift of Memento Mori, and this is its final invitation. We have reached the end of this winding path of discovery. But it is also, and more importantly, the true beginning of your journey. We began in the modern fog of anxiety and distraction, feeling like ghosts in our own lives. We then unearthed an ancient key, the two potent words, Memento Mori. We have journeyed with it, watching as it transformed from a frightening specter into a powerful ally. We have seen how it defeats procrastination, clarifies our purpose, and dissolves regret. We have witnessed its power to conquer fear, to deepen love, to awaken our senses, and to grant us a profound peace in the face of impermanence. We have traveled from the isolated ego to a feeling of cosmic interconnectedness. All of these lessons, all of these stories and philosophies have been leading to this single, culminating point. It is no longer a concept to be understood, but a life to be lived. This is the final invitation, the invitation to live vividly. We must begin by seeing this awareness of our mortality, not as a dark and heavy burden, but as an incredible and precious privilege. For most of human history, death was an intimate, ever-present reality. But in our sanitized, comfortable modern world, we have managed to push it out of sight, and therefore, out of mind. To rediscover this awareness, to consciously bring it back into our lives, is not a step backward into a morbid past. It is a giant leap forward into a more authentic and vibrant existence. It is a gift to be reminded of what is truly important before it is too late. The great writer and philosopher Henry David Thoreau explained his own quest for this kind of life when he wrote, "I went to the woods because I wished to live deliberately, to live deep and suck out all the marrow of life. and not. When I came to die, I discovered that I had not lived. Memento Mori is the ultimate tool for living deliberately. It is the secret that allows us to suck all the marrow out of life, to stop sleepwalking, and to finally, truly awaken to the astonishing privilege of our own existence. But what does it actually mean to live vividly? It is not about reckless, adrenaline-fueled hedonism. It is not about chasing fleeting pleasures. It is about depth of experience. Living vividly means feeling deeply. It means opening your heart to the full, messy, beautiful spectrum of human emotion to allow yourself to feel profound joy without reservation, to feel grief without shame, to feel love without armor. It means refusing to numb yourself to the richness of your own emotional world. Living vividly means loving fiercely. It means loving with a courageous vulnerability, telling the people you love how you feel, showing up for them, and risking the potential pain of loss for the certain beauty of connection. Living vividly means taking risks for what matters. It is the courage to start the business you've always dreamed of, to write the book that is inside you, to have the difficult conversation, to stand up for your beliefs even when your voice shakes. Living vividly means laughing loudly and often, embracing play and a sense of humor, especially about your own ego and its ridiculous seriousness. And above all, living vividly means being fully present, paying such close and loving attention to the small miracles of your daily life, the taste of water when you are thirsty, the comfort of a warm bed, the sound of a friend's laughter, that each day becomes a masterpiece of sensory experience. This philosophy forces us to confront a fundamental choice, one that we make with our actions every single day. If you were offered a choice between two lives, one, a long, safe, and comfortable life lived in a gray haze of distraction and fear, a life where you never took any real risks and never felt any deep emotions, or two, a potentially shorter life, but one lived in vibrant color, a life filled with passion, purpose, deep connection, and the full range of human experience. Which would you choose? Intellectually, we all choose the latter. Yet, we so often live in a way that prioritizes the former. We prioritize safety over courage. We prioritize comfort over growth. We prioritize the avoidance of pain over the pursuit of joy. Memento Mori holds this hypocrisy up to the light. It is the great champion of quality over quantity. It reminds us that a single day lived with full awareness, with courage and with love, is worth more than a decade spent as a ghost. It tells us that the goal is not to live as long as possible, but to live as deeply as possible in the time that we are given. Imagine a man named Arthur. When we first meet him, he is the embodiment of the quiet desperation we've discussed. He is in his 40s, working a job that pays the bills but slowly drains his soul. His relationships are superficial. He is haunted by the regret of a failed business from his 20s. And he lives in a state of low-grade anxiety, endlessly distracting himself with television and trivial online arguments. Then, he encounters the idea of Memento Mori. At first it scares him, but then, it intrigues him. He starts to practice. He puts a small hourglass on his desk at work. The ticking clock of his own mortality gives him the courage to finally act on an old dream. He spends his weekends in his garage, slowly, patiently, teaching himself woodworking. It is his unsung song. He starts to apply the clarity filter. He lets go of a petty, decade-long grudge with an old friend. He feels lighter. He starts to practice mindfulness. He truly tastes his morning coffee for the first time in years. He mends his strained relationship with his brother, choosing connection over being right. His new woodworking business has setbacks, but instead of seeing them as failures, he sees them as lessons. As part of the process, he loves his fate. He no longer cares what his old corporate colleagues think of his new, less prestigious life. He has traded external validation for internal fulfillment. Our final image of Arthur is not of a rich or famous man. It is a simple snapshot. He is in his workshop, covered in sawdust, sunlight streaming through the window, laughing at a mistake he just made. Fully present, fully engaged, fully alive. He has not changed the entire world, but he has fundamentally and beautifully changed his own. He is living vividly. And so we arrive at the end of our exploration, and the beginning of yours. You have heard the philosophy. You have listened to the stories. You have been given the tools. You do not need to wait for a near-death experience. You do not need to wait for a tragic loss or a frightening diagnosis. The universe has already delivered its message. The ancient, life-giving whisper of Memento Mori is in the air. Right here. Right now. In this very moment. The final and only question left is, how will you respond? And so, our long journey together comes to a close. We began with a single, ancient whisper from the past. A phrase that at first seemed dark and forbidding. We took that whisper of Memento Mori, and we held it to the light. We watched as it transformed. Its purpose shifting from a morbid reminder of an end to a vibrant, life-affirming call to begin. We followed its thread through the labyrinth of our modern lives. Using its wisdom to find our way, we faced the ghosts of our past and learned to release the heavy anchor of regret, transforming its weight into the liberating lightness of gratitude. We walked into the fog of fear and found not a monster to be slain, but a partner to be danced with. We redefined our work not as a transaction, but as a contribution. We rediscovered our legacy, not in monuments of stone, but in moments of connection. We saw the illusion of our separate selves dissolve into the profound, comforting truth of our interconnectedness with all of life. And in that, we found a peace that can withstand the storms of impermanence. If there is one single truth to take with you from our time together, let it be this: Memento Mori is not a philosophy about dying. It is the most powerful philosophy for living ever conceived. It is not a quiet whisper about the end, but a thunderous, joyful, and urgent call to truly live. It is the universe's secret, shaking us from our slumber, reminding us that peace and fulfillment are not found by avoiding the truth of our brief existence, but by embracing it completely. Our mortality is not a curse to be feared. It is a gift to be used. It is the ultimate compass, the one true north that, in every moment of confusion or doubt, will always point you back toward what truly matters. It is the clarifying fire that burns away everything that is not essential, leaving only the brilliant, golden truth of who you are and what you are here to do. This journey was never about adding a new pressure or a new anxiety to your life. It is not a test you must pass, or a race you must win. It is simply an invitation to be more present, to love more courageously, to create more freely, and to walk through your remaining days with a sense of wonder and purpose. The power to make this change, to live this way, does not reside in any book or any teacher. It resides entirely, and already, within you. It begins now, with your next breath, with your next choice, with the very next moment you decide to be fully present for. You have been given this one wild, precious life. It is happening right now. Live it.